He survived the apocalypse until the very end, not because he was weak, but because everyone he cared about died before him. Given 1 month to start over, he doesn't waste a second stocking food, building a private army, and preparing for the world's collapse. Now for the Void Sovereign with the power of subspace, surviving the apocalypse is no longer a problem at all. This time, he won't just become stronger, he'll build a team worth surviving for. Our protagonist, Chen Luo, has become a very cool guy, and right now he's dealing with a bunch of food deliveries and the like. He accepted the delivery and sent all the couriers away, and when they got paid, they started gossiping about him, calling him a fool. And why does he need so much food? MC looked through his list, opened the food containers, and thought how wonderful it was to be surrounded by so many pleasant, fresh smells. Who would have thought that just 3 days ago he was struggling with hunger during the apocalypse? That's right, in 27 days, a real apocalypse will begin in the world. 80% of the planet's population will turn into zombies. Of those who didn't turn, about 90% died at the hands of these zombies, and the remaining small portion of the planet's population began to evolve, acquiring supernatural abilities. The abilities were divided into physical, magical, and spiritual. The ability he received was an incredibly rare cosmic system called the Prince of the Void. Ever since he mastered this ability and was able to fight and defend himself, he began to feel free. But despite all his efforts, he couldn't save everyone. There was no one left but himself, only these terrible monsters. Being the only survivor, he felt loneliness slowly eating away at him. So he decided to end everything himself. When he died, he suddenly opened his eyes and realized that he had traveled back in time exactly 27 days before the apocalypse. Although his other abilities had disappeared, the system he mastered in his past life remained with him. Now he needed to think about what he lacked back then: resources and food. Food is a person's primary need. How could one live without it? Thanks to his ability, he had a space where time stood still. Rat, keeping the food fresh. How could he miss the opportunity bestowed upon him by heaven? He was distracted from his thoughts by a call from his uncle, Chen Jianan, asking him to urgently come to his company to discuss something, and he thought the time had come. But this time, he wouldn't be so naive. As soon as he joined the company, his uncle started scolding him for selling 3 billion yuan worth of shares in one. How could he not tell him about it? Did he really disrespect him? If he was threatened, he just needed to blink. If he had any difficulties, he should tell him. Chen Luo silently noted that he really was a natural-born actor. When the disaster happened, he heard with his own ears his son say that he was the one who staged the car accident that killed his parents, and then set about embezzling the shares they left him. But he could have lived his life thinking that he was a good person. He told him that no one was threatening him. He just had a premonition that pork prices would soon rise to 50 yuan per pound, so he could multiply his billion to 5. He jumped up from his seat and enthusiastically exclaimed that he needed to think more boldly. He was sure the price would exceed 100 per pound. His uncle was perplexed and had no idea what he was thinking. Was he out of his mind? He smiled nervously and offered to sell him this block of shares for 1.5 million. But he immediately refused, citing the fact that he had already signed a contract with the buyer and it would be impossible to buy them back. He heard a ringing sound from his pocket. He apologized to his uncle because he needed to answer a phone call, and he said that everything was fine, after which he thought, how dare this idiot sell shares without saying a word to him? He needed to teach him a lesson. After leaving the office, MC answered the call. A man told him about the discovery of a black dog with a torn ear. They sent him a photo so that he could confirm that it was indeed his dog. Hearing this news, Chen Luo became excited. After the end of the world, savvy businessman, tired of idleness, decided to compile a ranking of people with superpowers. In his category, he of course was in first place. In the fire category, first place belongs to Lin Yangzi, nicknamed the Scarlet Rose. The best abilities related to lightning, the hallmark of the Lightning King, are dogs. That's right, any creature that hasn't turned into a zombie is capable of gaining superpowers, but this is a dog. In recent days, when food is almost gone, dog meat is also a good option. Many dared to catch him, but no attempt was successful, except his. He was the one who ate him, so he is sort of familiar with him. Remembering that taste, he realizes that it was wonderful, and his left ear is proof of that. How good that there will be no shortage of food this time, so why not become companions? He will take care of him and feed him well. He glanced at the photo and told the man that this was the dog, and that he should send him the address. He'd be right there. He moved on in high spirits, telling the dog to wait. He'd save him, and he hoped it would acknowledge him as its owner. He went into his uncle's office to say goodbye, and he suggested they talk later. MC thought with a grin, it's just a shame he won't have the chance to chat with him again in this life. He and his son will die in the apocalypse, he promises them. An hour later, he reached a restaurant specializing in dog meat. He immediately saw the dog in its cage and remarked on how pitiful it looked. Where else could one find such a formidable dog after the end of the world? He crouched down and told the dog not to be afraid. He'd save it. After which he called the restaurant owner in a displeased tone. He approached him with a kind smile and asked how he could help him, and he pointed to the cages and exclaimed, He steals dogs and still dares to ask what he's interested in? If he hadn't noticed in time, his dog would have been on a plate. The man was perplexed. He thought they were mongrels. Why does a dog have an owner? Is he deliberately asking for trouble? He told him that he buys them legally. Mongrels all look the same. Is he sure he's not mistaken? Chenluo took out his phone and said that since everything here is legal, he will call the police to check it out, and he rushed to his phone, indignantly exclaiming that this is unfair. He started to threaten. Then MC grabbed his arm and kicked him under the knee so that he fell, and he thought, he trained for over 10 years. Why should he be afraid of him? He let him go and asked if he wanted to do something else. The man fell to his knees before him and folded his hands in pleading, begging him for mercy. It was his mistake. He really didn't know it was his dog. He'd bring him the dog today, but he had no money. Chenluo agreed, but only because of his good behavior. If he returned the dog, he'd forget everything. The man, with tears in his eyes, pulled the dog out of the cage and thought, even though he wanted him to go broke, it would be better if he used him some more. This was such a great plan. The man kindly brought the dog to him, and he named him Blackie, saying they were going home. Looking into the dog's eyes, it seemed to him that he had a soul. He wondered if he understood human speech, and the dog really did. He was surprised by the name he gave him and thought, should he follow him? MC was then convinced that he really did have intelligence, which meant he had successfully tamed the lightning warlock. They got into the car, he petted the dog and said that in the future it would follow him everywhere, and from now on, he would call it Warlock. He thought about how the dog would like him, and decided to buy everything he needed for his upbringing first. Time passed, and he reached the house guarded by Sudaju, his faithful friend, and he was very happy to meet him. In the past world, while he was studying the way of emptiness, he always covered for him. In the end, thanks to him, he was saved and he was killed. But in this life, he definitely will not deny himself anything. He called out to him and invited him to go play after work in the evening, but he refused, since his mother said that men should not learn bad things. He asked what else she said, and he answered, when someone shows him excessive kindness, they probably have ulterior motives. These words made him feel uneasy, but he consoled himself with the fact that in this timeline, Daju does not yet know him, and that is normal. The apocalypse happened while he was on duty, and when the incident happens again, they'll probably become close friends. He went into the house, showed the dog the huge bath, and said it was his home now, but first he'd give him a bath. They both climbed into the bathtub, and while he was rubbing the dog with a washcloth, he began to think. He could never have imagined that, having been reborn, he would look so much like an old man. In the whole world, there's only one left. He's pretty sure there'll be a wave of superpowered strongmen in the future. Otherwise, he'll just organize a meeting place. He'll recruit them, along with Warlock, to become brothers under his command. It's a good thing he can still replenish his powers through teleportation. He's no match for open combat. But if you build a gathering place, then there will be the issue of resource extraction. From grain, salt, fruits and vegetables, to electricity, medicine, weapons, everything will be needed, especially water. After all, after the apocalypse, all water sources will be contaminated. No trick will clean them of viruses, and if you want to drink clean water, you'll have to wait for rain. He suddenly slapped himself in the face. He'd completely forgotten about the batons and stun guns. Warlock looked at him fearfully, and he reassured him that these were for zombies, not for him. He thought that zombies were afraid of electricity, but after the apocalypse, they wouldn't use it for long. But in the beginning, victory would be guaranteed with this. He picked up his phone to see what he needed, and decided to find something about alloy armor. That would definitely make him invincible. He could choose for now, and order only when the need arose. After that, he decided to have a snack, but he didn't forget about Warlock either. He attacked the food so much that Chenluo asked him to eat more slowly, otherwise he would choke, and promised him a life like a king when he stocked up on grain. He spat the bone out of his mouth. The dog did the same, and he was delighted, saying that dogs also spit out bones. And then he realized that he had insulted himself. There was a knock at the door. A woman named Ma Yu stood on the threshold. He didn't recognize her at first, but quickly remembered that he had hired her as a cooking teacher. He had completely forgotten that he had a lesson after lunch. He invited her inside, and she looked around and thought, he pays 50,000 for a month of simple cooking lessons. At first, she was afraid that he would be some kind of swindler, but looking at him, she could calm down. Can't he attract beautiful girls? Or is he trying for her? He led her into the kitchen, pointed to the table, and said he'd already prepared the necessary utensils and basic ingredients, just as she'd said. He wasn't confident in his survival if he couldn't cook anything with so many ingredients, so he'd better spend a huge amount of money now by hiring her as his cooking teacher. She rolled up her sleeves and decided to get straight to the lesson. Today, she would teach him how to cook sweet and sour ribs. He glanced at her with a suspicious smile and decided to give her her salary in a month, after which the lesson began. He cooked under her careful guidance, and when he made mistakes, she sternly scolded him, and for good reason, since he couldn't even tell the difference between sugar and salt. Finally, the dish was ready, but it looked like it was meant to be used as a poison. Despite this, Mayu said they were making progress, and he asked her not to reassure him. Even Warlock wouldn't eat something like that. He nodded, agreeing with him. He had no grudge against the owner, So why did she want to poison him? Mayu honestly said that everything was bad, but at least the kitchen was still intact. MC was very upset. He really wasn't capable of cooking. It seemed like all he could do was find a great chef. The lesson was over. Mayu left, and he walked her to the door, noting that she was quite good. It was a pity that they hadn't met in their past life. Now he wondered what would happen to her after the end of the world. She was also lucky. He appreciated her. And then he saw something amazing. He couldn't even believe his eyes at first. Right in front of him were the sisters Mealing and Millie, and they were quite complex girls. After the eldest Mealing awakened as a fire mage, she became the first among all such mages. She was called the Maiden of the Blushing Rose and Living Flame. Her younger sister Mealy was even better. She was a light mage. Although she is weak in combat, she is an excellent healer. Rumor has it that she can even resurrect. He had a rather difficult choice ahead of him, but he would do everything to get them. He called his subordinates and asked them to find out about these sisters. The most important thing is that they like to eat. After all, food works miracles. He will stock up on everything they like, and after a day without food, they will be obedient. May 28th arrived. 5 days left until the end of the world, and this is what Chenluo managed to find out. Mealing loves Sichuan cuisine, and Millie loves fish. Her favorite dish is salted pork legs. She also likes watermelons. This reminded him that pickles are also not bad. He needs to stock up on those too. There are 4 days left until the end of the world. He bought himself armor. Although it turned out to be heavy, he will be safer in it. He also decided to think about what armor he will give to Daju. There were 3 days left until the end of the world. He bought an electric baton, a high voltage discharge that would instantly shock the target and could even kill them in a couple of seconds. Now zombies were no problem for him. When there were 2 days left, he bought a truck, and the night before, when he went to bed, he tossed and turned because his head was full of thoughts. He had been reborn. Maybe this end of the world wouldn't happen at all. If it didn't, then he had wasted his money on supplies. Despite this, he still wished for the end of the world to not happen. He would sacrifice himself for the good of humanity. This is some kind of monopoly. Is it bad to live one life well in a prosperous world? Why can't you survive the end of the world with people? And so he lay and thought until the morning, when there was about an hour and a half left until the end of the world. He called his uncle and apologized for disturbing him so early, but he had a matter with which he needed his help. He agreed without any problems. After all, he is his nephew, and he said that according to his observations, there will soon be a big jump in the growth of the game currency. It will definitely increase 10 times. But he knows that all his money is stored in pork, and he wants to put this reserve worth 1 billion as collateral to lend him 500 million. Time will pass, and these 500 million can turn into 5 billion. And everything will be returned to him along with interest. He is at home now, right? Now he will go to them. They will talk in person. He just wanted to talk to Brother Fei. Let him invite him. Seeing the ominous aura emanating from the owner, Warlock got nervous and Chenluo went to kill. He got into the car and asked the dog to wait for him here. He will go sort out something. It is personal. For his own safety, let him not think of running away. He understood everything and barked back. Then MC looked at Dazu, who was still standing at his post. Although he lived perfectly well without him in his past life, he should give him some advice, since they are sworn brothers. He rode up to him and asked him to listen to him. When he woke up this morning, he felt uneasy. It seems something serious is about to happen. When 10 a.m. comes, let him be more careful. He was so assertive that the guy felt uneasy and promised him to be careful. After which, Chenluo left. His uncle was already waiting for him with his son. He said that this boy wants to speculate in virtual currency. He really is not afraid of death. To be honest, even though this thing has skyrocketed in price now, it is really worth nothing. His son noted that the business was delivered right to his door. Why should he refuse? The man said that Chenluo knows that he will deceive him, and for some reason he allows him to earn money. He doesn't think this is a trap. His son replied that he understood the psychology of virtual currency. It was the same as gambling. He urgently needed to spend money, but he didn't know many people. No one would give him 500 million, so he came to them. There was a knock at the door, which meant Chenluo had arrived, and the man told his son to be careful. Fei greeted his dear cousin, who kindly spread his arms out to the sides and said, if he were braver, he would join him, but if he made anything, he shouldn't forget about him. It was already 9 a.m., and MC hugged him and promised to give him a sports car if he made 1 billion. The guy laughed and said he'd remember that, just so he wouldn't regret his words later. Food was prepared for his arrival, so they could talk over breakfast. 15 minutes had passed since the end of the world, and Chenluo was enjoying his last peaceful meal, when suddenly he heard some sounds. Jianan asked his son to check. It seemed to be coming from the servants' room. Had Xiao Li fallen ill? Fei went to check, while MC looked up at his uncle with a serious expression and realized that the apocalypse had arrived. He ran after Fei and said that he would also go and check if everything was alright, and if anything, he would help him send her to the hospital. He thought to himself, it looks like they both really are destined to die today. Meanwhile, Fei opened the door to the servants' room and saw a disfigured woman bending over the body of another worker, and a pool of blood had spread beneath it. At this sight, he recoiled in fear and fell. And then she rushed to him. He panicked and rushed to close the door, and just as he was about to close it in, Chenluo grabbed the door and, with a calm smile, said they came to check what was going on. How could they see it with the doors closed? Fei started to get indignant, and then he hit him with a stun gun, telling him not to worry, he wouldn't let him die that easily. After that, he opened the door, released the zombie, and it pounced on the guy and began devouring him alive. Jianan came running at the noise. He was horrified that Chenluo had decided to kill his son, albeit not with his own hands, and vowed to do the same in return. But he attacked him with a taser and told him to act. The man was very scared. He closed his eyes, and MC laughed at him, asking, "What's wrong? And how is he going to block the current?" When he lost consciousness, he said with a disgruntled tongue. Even looking at him hurt. Fei finally woke up. The zombie continued to eat him, and he crawled toward Chenluo, begging him for help. Chenluo asked him to be quiet and not throw a tantrum. Fei reached for his shoe. MC waved him off and said that his father was lying on the floor. Hearing this, Fei began to insult him in every possible way, and he clicked his tongue in displeasure, saying that he couldn't enjoy such a stunning scene alone. He shocked his uncle to wake him up, and seeing his son suffering, he began to beg Chenluo to save him. Since he was his cousin, he admitted that he secretly tampered with his share, but Chen Fei knew nothing about it. He was innocent. MC noted that he had already done it. What did he have to apologize for? The man looked up at him in shock and wondered why he was asking. Did he really already know about this? Chenluo grabbed him by the clothes and asked, "Have you thought about the answer?" His son wouldn't last long. Jianan panicked and asked him to save him, and then he might decide not to call the police, otherwise he would be in big trouble. MC gave him a displeased look, saying that he had given him a chance. The man called him an inhuman animal, exclaiming, "Is he really thinking of killing his uncle and cousin with his own hands?" He hit him back and noted that this was the voice of the man who killed his father. Seeing that he was failing, he took him into the corporation, and in response, he secretly killed him. How could he even have the decency to say such a thing? The zombie had already grabbed Fei's throat. His father called out to him worriedly, and then told Chenluo that he was his father's brother. He had helped him a lot, and what was the result? He only gave him 10% of the shares and sent him out to beg, so he deserved to die. And with today's technology, he definitely couldn't escape responsibility. MC reminded him that back then, 10% of the shares were worth 1.5 billion. Could an ordinary worker earn that much? He threw it at the zombie, calling it too greedy, and watching it being devoured, he thought of his father and told him that he had truly warmed the snake to his chest. As his son, he could only do this. Blood got on his face, he wiped it away, and when the zombie pounced on him, he wasn't surprised at all, having become a monster. She can't feel anything except the desire to eat people. He hit her with a baton, and she was immediately electrocuted and froze. Although they don't feel fear, they still feel pain, so it is possible to paralyze and stun them. Killing them is not difficult. You need to hit them right between the eyes. He plunged the blade into her forehead and thought that although it was disgusting, it was effective. And they also have a treasure hidden between their eyebrows, a crystal. He put it in the box as expected from the beginning of the apocalypse, even low-level crystals. After the apocalypse began, no matter whether a person with superpowers or a zombie, everyone would develop a crystal between their eyebrows. The energy contained within the crystal not only helps the awakened person speed up their recovery, but also level up. In short, it's a useful treasure that he should definitely collect as many as possible. The size and color of the crystal changes depending on the target's abilities and strength. A person or zombie with fire magic would have a red crystal. A person or zombie with wind magic would have a green crystal. A person or zombie with space magic would have a transparent crystal. When he retrieved the lightning magic crystal from the dog's brain, it was dark purple and the size of a chicken egg. When he went outside, he saw a little zombie girl next to his car. She immediately rushed toward him, and he told her to slow down and come to him. He would give her something tasty. He shocked her with a stun gun and remarked that this weapon was very useful. Having finished with the zombies, he took the crystal and returned to the car, and Warlock was shocked by his cruelty during the massacre of the zombies. Chenluo approached him and said with a smile that he felt their time for awakening would soon come, and then it would not be safe for them to stay outside. Now they needed to go home. After awakening, he could leave. They entered the house. The dog was scared, seeing 3 dead people, and while MC calmly ate apples, Warlock sat nearby and trembled from something. This was already starting to irritate him. He glanced at him to check what was wrong, but seeing lightning emanating from him, he immediately calmed down and thought, are his powers awakening? To avoid being hit, he hid behind the sofa, but fortunately, nothing happened. The sparks died down, and the dog passed out from fatigue. He emerged from his hiding place and thought, the strength of superpowers depends on 2 factors. Firstly, the sooner you start awakening, the greater your power will be. Secondly, the faster you awaken, the greater your power will be. Warlock already has his lightning magic at its maximum, and his intelligence must have also doubled. He's so jealous. He really is worse than a dog. Suddenly, he felt something, dropped the apple from his hands, and grabbed his head, saying that it hurt so much that it seemed like he was awakening too. He crawled to the couch, sat up, and concentrated on his sensations, then suddenly opened his eyes and waved his hand, throwing an energy projectile at the wall. Warlock was scared, and Chenluo thought that everything was bad. That spatial ball attack had used up a quarter of his strength, He wouldn't even be able to kill a zombie with that attack. First, he needed to absorb the crystal and level up. During the end of the world, people with superpowers were divided into 10 levels, and there is also a royal level, which is higher than 10. In his past life, Warlock and Lin Yangzi were royal levels, like him. But after he absorbed Warlock's crystal, he rose to another level. But at that time, he didn't understand what the benefit of this was. Without food, drink, entertainment, and people, there was no point in him staying alive. It was better to die. After a short meditation, he opened his eyes. If he absorbed 20-odd crystals, he could rise to level 2. After warming up, he approached Warlock and advised him not to simply throw lightning bolts, but to try to concentrate and accumulate power in his throat, and then throw it wherever he was looking. The dog followed his advice. He released lightning from his mouth, and MC patted him on the head and praised him. As a reward, he led him to the cold storage room, where he would give him some treats. With the house business done, they headed out to the city, and he stopped at the supermarket and said there must be a lot of resources there. The building was big after all. Everyone says a thief never leaves empty-handed. In any case, there are a lot of good things there. They can't let zombies wander around there. He suggested the dog attack them both, and he agreed. Afterward, he put on his new armor and told Warlock that if he could attack, he should do so, but carefully, not head-on. He needed to use his agility and dodge their attacks. While they were walking to the supermarket, zombies pounced on them. He quickly dealt with them, but the dog had trouble. For some reason, his lightning bolts didn't work. Chen Luo encouraged him, assuring him that everything was fine, but first, let him lead them away. While he was distracting them, MC entered the supermarket. As expected, everything here is so elite, and so he decided not to be shy. He used his strength to grab everything he needed, then left the supermarket and stretched, thinking that he had so much scope for his abilities, how good it was that everything could be taken for free. He called out to Warlock, since it was time for them to leave. At that time, he was running from zombies and was very upset that his owner could easily kill them, but he couldn't. Chen Luo came to his aid. He pushed the zombie aside and patted him on the head, telling him not to worry. He was doing well. He just needed a little time, and then he would become the coolest dog. Warlock was very happy, and MC gave him a treat to calm him down. After that, they drove into the city. A guy in a yellow car caught up with him and asked if he knew what happened. He called the police, but they weren't answering. He calmly replied that it was perfectly clear. The end of the world had come. The guy nervously clenched his teeth, pondering the situation, and offered to team up with him, but he refused, and before he could express his indignation, he quickly drove away. He plans to take partners, but only the best. He hoped that guy wouldn't be offended by his cold-bloodedness. Although he has few resources, they are not infinite, so he needs to be more careful. He clicked his tongue in displeasure. He just remembered that the only way to get to the storage facility is through this road, but there is a whole traffic jam of zombies. Apparently, his only option is to kill them. He told Warlock to take a walk, but not to forget to defend himself, and when the zombies rushed to attack, he got out of the car and started hitting everyone with his electric batons. One of them pounced on him from behind. He hit him and laughed at him for not being able to attack stealthily, and then another zombie pounced on him. It wanted to bite him, but only broke its teeth on his armor, and MC threw it away, saying that a low-level zombie can't break that. During the apocalypse, there is no one to replace their teeth, so they need to be careful. Otherwise they will be gone, and all they will be left to lick. But they have nothing to worry about. They will die anyway. He wanted to rush into the attack, but as always, at the most necessary moment, his baton failed him. The battery died. The protagonist approached the zombie and said, "Okay, let it take the stick if it wants to. He could get a new one, after all." At that moment, thanks to his magical powers, he grabbed another one and struck the zombie. He said with a smile that it was good. The catch was big this time. Warlock asked again, "Didn't he say they were going to the cold storage room where they were now?" He replied that Warlock had made quick work of it. This truck had something even cooler than alloy armor and a stun baton. He'd save that for today. Let it jump in. He'd give it a ride. When they got into the truck, he said, "Look, the gates are just decorations for this giant." He stepped on the gas pedal and slammed into the gates, breaking them with ease, shouting, "That's really cool." When he got inside, he saw a lot of workers and realized he knew it would happen. Killing 100 zombies with a baton would take too long, and it would run out of power quickly. This would be much more effective, so he stepped on the gas again and started killing the workers. Warlock was horrified by how brutal it was, and the people watching from the side realized how brave he was. They thought this truck was stronger than the ones they had in the cell. Maybe they should ask him to get them out of here? He was all alone. Why would he risk himself and help them? Was he their father or something? In his opinion, the driver was a psychopath. Otherwise, he wouldn't have driven like that. He probably knew there were resources in the cell, scooped it all up and left. What good would it do him? Another guy suggested they save themselves by stealing the truck from him. It would be safer in their hands. They noticed he was wearing armor, and at that moment, the protagonist got out of the truck and slammed the doors. He looked around, and the guys continued discussing whether they just needed to steal his equipment and they would be safe. What did they think about that? The other guy would answer yes, they'd steal it from him. This guy was thinking of taking all the resources from the cell, but they wouldn't allow it. Chen Luo placed his hand on the head of one of the dead people, and the same girl who had greeted him and thanked him for killing all the zombies and saving them approached him. He was surprised. Was she thanking him? And now she just asked him to take her away? The girl asked again, "Was he the only one here?" He replied, "Yes." The three of them were the only ones left. Chenluo thought first she'd thanked him, and now they'd beat him? The guys approached him from behind and grabbed him by the shoulders. One of them said, "Don't resist me," and told them not to worry, because they wouldn't touch him. He was perplexed and thought that in a bad environment, the ugly side of humanity is revealed 1,000 times more. During an apocalypse, kindness is the safest and most destructive. The guys noticed Warlock and asked, "Where did this one come from?" It seemed uninfected. Chenluo realized he no longer had to worry about exposing himself with his spatial abilities, and at that moment, he used his magical powers to attack these strangers. After all, the dead don't talk. The people began to tremble in pain after his magical strikes, and the girl exclaimed at him not to kill her. He was surprised. Was it all because she was a girl? She began calling for help and running away from him, and Chenluo thought she was fast, so he ordered his dog to act. Warlock jumped right at her back, causing the girl to cry out in pain and fall to the ground. He remarked that this is why they say the first attack has the advantage. After that, he directed his magical wave at the girl, and she cried out in pain completely. Now he decided to go shopping. He needed seasonings, seafood, and poultry, as well as pork legs and instant food. When he was back in the truck, he happily said, "Warlock, they've collected several tons of resources. That's really cool. They'll go home and rest, then leave the grain silo and continue looting." They wondered how Daju was doing, and at that moment, a man appeared in front of him, shouting and waving his arms at him to stop and please give him a ride. Chenluo wondered what was hidden under his clothes. Most likely, there was nothing good there. He had one rule for survival: never allow any threat to appear, and he couldn't allow even the slightest chance of that. The man continued shouting and waving his arms, but Chenluo didn't stop and realized he couldn't do that. If the guy dared stand in his way, he would simply run him over. The man abruptly stepped aside, frightened by the man's attempt to run him over, and began screaming in anger. He should wait for him, because as soon as he got the chance, he would kill him. Chenluo was surprised. He wanted to stab him? In that case, he'd asked for it. Usually, when someone gets angry, they say something bad behind someone's back or do something nasty, but during the end of the world, after awakening their abilities, everyone had the chance to kill. He turned to Warlock and asked, "Did you hear what he said?" He said, "Eat dog meat." He thought, although he didn't understand human speech, he was sure he hadn't said dog meat. At that moment, the guy grabbed a baton and ran toward him, shouting that he would deal with him, when he suddenly saw Warlock jump out of the truck, shouting for him to watch him beat his dog. At that moment, he swung the bat and no longer cared whether he ate dog meat. If the owner said he would die, then he had to die. Suddenly, Warlock opened his mouth and released a magical bright energy that enveloped the guy's entire body, and he began to scream loudly and could not move. Chenluo told him to finish him off and not use lightning. He smiled and said that if he hesitated during the battle, he would meet his death, and that only by adapting to the apocalypse could he survive. At that moment, Warlock bit the boy on the neck, drawing blood, and Chenluo confirmed that he was doing the right thing. It was a good job, so they should go home. Warlock barked back and climbed back into the truck. As the boys continued on their way, they ran over people along the way, and Chenluo said that the road in the forest was very narrow, making the truck difficult to park. Warlock should get out of the car and take the zombies with him, then park by the road and join him. Warlock jumped out and began barking at the people who had rallied around it. Chenluo realized this was a good thing, because once Warlock got rid of the zombies, they'd return. He got out of the car and realized that when the time came, they would act as his unpaid guards, preventing other survivors from approaching the car and damaging anything. Fortunately, his rebirth hadn't affected the course of events, and Daju hadn't turned into a zombie. He must be safe. He noticed the zombie-turned passersby looking at each other in horror. The protagonist approached one of them, grabbed him by the hair, and thought about how, during the last apocalypse, Daju had fled into the forest. Apparently, he'd climbed over the fence and hid inside. It was a shame he couldn't remember exactly where he'd been hiding, only somewhere on the outskirts. It looked like he'd have to resort to the most primitive method, and he started screaming, "Daju, can he hear him? Where is he?" Warlock realized that screaming would only attract zombies. "Master, has he gone crazy?" At that moment, Daju heard his scream and realized it was him. The girl hugged him by the arm and asked him not to leave, as he was crazy and wasn't afraid of attracting zombies. Let him die if he wanted, but he wouldn't let them down. Daju thought this was really strange. Chenluo understood that he was only putting himself in danger, and why was he looking for him like that? When he looked outside, Chenluo asked again, did he hear him? He told him not to be afraid, and Daju said that things were bad, and they needed to check out the situation. The girl, her voice shaking, said that she would go with him and not abandon him. Let him watch. After all, she had said he would attract zombies. They looked out the window and saw zombies running past, and Chenluo immediately began to attack. Daju shouted that he was really cool, and the girl said that with such a powerful stun gun, there was no need to be afraid when meeting a zombie. It was no wonder he was so brave. This made Daju exclaim and wave at him, signaling his presence, and Chenluo was overjoyed. When the girl saw Chenluo, she realized who he was and frowned. Chenluo also glanced her way and realized how he could have forgotten this hypocritical brat. In her past life, she had been such a burden to him and Daju. She was very cunning, and in her past life, clean drinking water was scarce. Plus, there was a fear that some danger might lurk in the water, so she directly experimented on Daju. She would ask him to drink tea, and then drink it herself. Having become one with them, she would pull the wool over everyone's eyes, constantly saying in a sweet voice that it was always safe with Daju. but always so dangerous with him. After that, she immediately ran to Chen Luo and said that she felt a closeness between them at first sight. Unlike with Daju, who always exuded such coldness. Even when it came to sharing food, she always hid her share. She said she was really hungry, but she couldn't stand it. Daju told her not to be afraid and to take it and eat it, and he and Chen Luo will try to find more food and return. Pretending to be hungry and pitiful, she played with him as she pleased. If she had the nerve to do that, how shameless she really was. Then, she shouldn't blame him for using her and showing Daju her whole life. He approached the boys and told Daju to come with him. They should stick together. Daju thanked him for this, and Jing greeted him, saying that he had mentioned him. Her name is Jing, and they share a common surname. They might even have been a family 500 years ago. They better hurry and stop chatting here. Otherwise they'll get into so much trouble if they encounter zombies. Chen Luo immediately led Daju along, and Daju realized he needed to befriend this Chen Luo. With these two protecting him, he had the best chance of waiting for the rescue team. As they entered, they realized this house was too small, too furnished, and even less so, too beautiful to compare to the previous one. If Jing could wait for the rescue team here and take Chen Luo with her, wouldn't she be killing two birds with one stone? A brilliant thought occurred to her, and suddenly Chen Luo asked if they were hungry. They shouldn't worry. He'd go get some food himself. They blushed with embarrassment and thanked him, and Chen Luo began to think he couldn't help this scum. At that moment, he conjured magical beams of light and wondered if she'd hurt them so severely in her past life. So how much harm would it do her if he gave her provisions now? He grabbed Warlock, who began screaming loudly, and a moment later brought food on a plate, saying that this was all they had in the house and that they could eat it. Daju asked if he'd at least saved some for himself. Chen Luo replied yes, it was fine. If they had a chance, they'd go to the supermarket for food. He started eating and asked if, since she was a girl, her appetite was weak. Would one piece be enough for her? She replied, of course. Thank him, and mentally cursed him. How could anyone possibly be full from such a piece? Oh well, after all, when he was full, Daju would be able to find him more food. At that moment, she tasted the food and wondered if this bread tasted disgusting. It had gone bad after all. Warlock, watching the scene, wondered why she dared to eat the bread he'd rubbed his ass with. She was so cool. Chen Luo smiled and mused that although this prank was too simple for her, it was just to get to know her. He needed to rip off her mask and get rid of her as quickly as possible. He explained that zombies were everywhere now, and they needed to figure out how to get to the supermarket to stock up on supplies. Daju immediately stood up and offered to go with him so he could cover for him. If he was so worried, he could bring a baton. He just needed to be skilled, and the zombies would definitely be able to injure him. That was a good option. The baton had enough ammo to kill 4 zombies. Chen Luo replied that, in his opinion, the zombies at the supermarket in this area wouldn't stop, so they needed to come up with a better option. He asked Jian if their bodies were fragile, and she was a pretty good runner. She would lead the zombies away from them. He and Daju will go to the supermarket for supplies, and then they will all meet at home. Jing was dumbfounded when she heard this and was surprised. Is this what she should do? She said with tears in her eyes that she had been sickly since childhood, and she is not a fast runner. Aren't they sending her to certain death? He asked again. Then let her tell what she can do? He'll distract the zombies while she and Daju go get supplies from the main office. She replied that it was not that she did not want to, but since this morning all she had eaten was the piece of bread he gave her. She was afraid that she had no strength left, and she did not want to drag them into trouble. He replied that no matter what option he offered, she could do nothing. She only wanted him and Daju to take risks, and she would sit and live at their expense. Jing wondered what was wrong with him. He also wanted her to work with them, and is it not necessary to take care of the girl at all? He does not take care of her at all. She turned to Daju and tried to say something, but Chen Luo interrupted her, saying he hadn't had any water since morning, and his throat was dry. It was also his fault. There wasn't even mineral water in the house, and the tap water was unclear whether it was pure. He suggested that maybe she could try it for him. Jing let her try it, and he wouldn't send her anywhere. She was angry. Was she some kind of guinea pig or something? What if the water was dirty? She didn't want to drink it. She had a bottle in her backpack, but she didn't dare drink it with Daju around. But what could she do with him around? That's why she endured it. She would soon die of thirst. She replied that she could wash their clothes and take care of them, just never create such difficulties for her. By the way, could they let Warlock try the water and see if it was drinkable? Warlock, surprised, turned to her and thought that even though he wasn't human, she was still a dog. She wants to experiment on him? He'll bite her right now. At that moment, Warlock lunged at her and bit her, causing the girl to panic and cry out in horror. Warlock ripped her backpack open, spilling food and water. Chen Luo smiled and said she'd brought a lot of useful things. He'd wondered why she was so protective of that stupid backpack, but it turns out she was hiding food in it. She probably wanted to eat quietly after they left. He smiled and realized he still hadn't gotten used to her disgusting face. This made Chen Luo laugh and say he was so hungry he wouldn't be embarrassed. Daju, isn't he full? Let him eat, and they'll go get supplies. Jing looked at Daju's reaction in horror and realized he'd constantly risked his life to save her. And what had she done? How dare she lie to him about not having food, when she obviously did? He frowned and realized that if she didn't want to share with him, then he wouldn't stand on ceremony with her. At that moment, Jing, with tears in her eyes, began screaming at him not to eat it because it belonged to her. Let her go. Chenluo tripped her, causing her to fall to the floor and start screaming. What kind of men were they if they mocked a girl? Chenluo considered letting her go and asked the zombies if their gender mattered, but even seeing her true face, Daju, wouldn't be enough to understand human nature. He needed to be tougher with Jing. Chenluo turned to her and asked why she was crying. Only after they ate would they have enough strength to search for resources, right? This time she wouldn't go with them. If they ate her food, then when they came back, they would give her double. Jing was right in her thinking. She couldn't quarrel with them right now. Anyway, she replied that she was wrong. She'd simply been hungry since childhood, and that was why she'd reacted automatically. Let them forgive her. After all, she really didn't want this. He was amazed at her imagination and, turning to Daju, suggested they go to the supermarket. He would go and get ready, and they could stay here for now. He replied, okay. He understood everything. He approached Warlock and asked him to bring zombies here. About 10 of them. Warlock asked again, Master, is he serious? He understood that they needed to bring zombies, but he didn't understand that. He asked them not to think too much about it, that he would come back and understand, and was already leaving, and now the fun began. He came out to them and asked how the two of them had rested. Jing exclaimed that it really smelled of garlic in here, and Daju asked why they needed so many. Chenluo replied that they didn't know, but as he was leaving, he saw someone had learned this trick from a movie. The man hung garlic on himself and saw with his own eyes the zombies running away in fear. At that moment, he realized they had fallen into his trap. Unfortunately, movies and reality are diametrically opposed, and the smell of garlic would only attract the zombies even more. He was saying what a shame. There was only enough garlic in the house for 2, and when they went to the supermarket, they would see if they could get more. Suddenly, they heard a crash, and Chenluo turned around and asked, did they hear that? It sounded like zombies were nearby. Jing exclaimed, what's that? Zombies only gather in groups when they wanted to attack. So what would she choose? Fight them or take the life-saving garlic? At that moment, Jing became frightened and exclaimed that they had broken down the doors. Chenluo asked Dazua to pour garlic juice on himself, and he looked at him silently, realizing that even though he was disgusted by her now, she still didn't deserve to die. There were clearly quite a few zombies, so wouldn't she die if he took the juice? Jing realized there was only 1 cup of garlic juice left, meaning only one could survive. She immediately turned the juice over her head, thinking that she was the one who had to survive. Daju looked at her with irritation and realized he was planning to give her the juice himself, but Chenluo interrupted him and asked him to watch. After the end of the world, he shouldn't treat people well in vain. This is all because there are people who are unworthy of being human. Jing screamed. Did he deceive her? Chenluo asked again. Didn't she throw herself into this? Did he really force her to pour the juice on herself? In fact, zombies are very sensitive to the smell of garlic, and that's why she'll be finished. Jing clutched her head and exclaimed, no, that's not true. He lied. She just wanted to survive. What's wrong with that? Chenluo replied, no, it's not true. But the bad thing was that she took advantage of people's decency and mocked them, especially his friend. As she said, they just want to survive. Would it be a mistake to sacrifice her? Chenluo realized she would soon die, and the dead don't tell secrets. Later, he would honestly tell him that his spatial abilities had awakened. She began to scream in a trembling voice. He had prepared in advance. It was no wonder he boldly poured the juice on himself. Chenluo told Daju to find a room where he could hide. Right now, he was just a burden. Jing began to beg Chenluo to forgive her, because then she would do whatever he wanted. He replied that he wanted her to die, and once she died, he would forgive her. Jing exclaimed angrily, what wrong had she done to him that he had been putting a spoke in her wheel from the first time they met? At that moment, monsters appeared behind her, immediately grabbed her with their claws, and dragged her away. After this situation, Chenluo looked around and realized he had miscalculated. He had lived in this house for 10 years, but today was the worst day. Dazu looked at the destroyed Jing, and Chenluo told him they didn't have time to pine over her, and couldn't possibly continue in this state, so let him help him retrieve the corpses. Half an hour later, they dragged all the destroyed zombies outside, and realized they were done with them. It would be nice if Chenluo had a maid to help him clean up all the blood. Come to think of it, Mayu was normal, pretty, and worked quickly. The only question was, did she survive? Chenluo no longer cared whether Mayu was alive. Let her suffer a little first, and then she would wait for him to come to her. She can easily do all the errands, but first of all deal with the bloodstains. He definitely didn't want to do that, and if he handed Daju over, he'd be embarrassed to rest, so that left only one option. He called Warlock and told him to follow him. He's so handsome, and so good with water. The rag is so clean, the entire floor is made of real wood, and he'll definitely wring it dry. In short, he hands him the very important task of cleaning the entire room, and once he's done, he can eat. Warlock was upset with his master and picked up the rag. Daju turned to Chenluo and asked him to go to the supermarket for supplies, and Chenluo replied that it was nothing special. No need to rush. He had something better up there, so he suggested they go upstairs and eat there. When they got up there was a huge amount of food, and Daju exclaimed, did he just pull all this out of thin air? Daju was incredibly surprised by everything that was happening, and Chenluo asked again, didn't he feel any changes in his body? Daju replied that he had a slight headache in the morning, but then he felt quite strong. These kinds of changes actually happen before the end of the world, and he had experienced them too. His transformations are power magic, and his is spatial magic. Shenluo suddenly discovered he could control space and could always sense when a disaster was about to happen, which is why he had so little in reserve. He demonstrated his magical abilities to Daju, and he replied, "So that's what it is. This explanation is more logical than reincarnation. He must believe it." Shenluo raised his glass and said he had a premonition. They will become brothers. He suggests that no matter how much they have, the world is big, and they will eat as much as possible. Daju replies that there's too much. They won't eat it all. Maybe they should leave some. It's enough for the two of them. Shenluo replied that everything is fine, and if they don't eat, they have Warlock, who hasn't eaten yet. Warlock reflected that when he was outside, he ate fat, not to mention lunches. Thank him, master. But is it really true? Warlock should mop the floor? Shenluo approached Daju and said that since he'd eaten, he'd give him a crystal, and that he should try to cultivate its power so he could increase his own strength faster. Daju asked again, where did it come from? He replied that it was from zombie brains, and Daju exclaimed, "It's disgusting." Shenluo patted him on the shoulder and told him to go to his room and absorb the crystals. If he couldn't stand it, he should stop immediately. He should no longer call him by his formal name. He could address him more simply. Daju thanked him for this, and after a while, the protagonist found himself in his bed, musing that this was strange. Given his past experience, he thought he could absorb 8 crystals at a time, but now that number had already reached 20, and when he did, his head suddenly began to hurt intensely, and he wondered if he'd really leveled up. In his past life, he'd spent a full 14 days leveling up, but now, on the first day of the end of the world, he'd reached level 2. His superpower is level 2 spatial magic, and it seems he can absorb crystals further. But what's his maximum now, and where can he go? After he clenched the crystal in his hand and straightened it, he realized that not only had he absorbed 42 crystals, but he had also managed to assemble a void sword. Although he couldn't hold it for more than 5 seconds, he had the power of a void sword in his past life at level 7. If this continues, then in his past life, he was only able to control the void path at level 9, and who knows, maybe now, at level 4, he'll be able to use it somewhat. And then, at the royal level, he'll be able to control the dimensional blade, and that will also be earlier than planned. This is very exciting. The next morning, he went out to Daju's floor, and Daju greeted him and wished him good morning, saying that everything worked out as he said. He had much more strength, and he was basically feeding on all the crystals. Warlock started barking with joy, and Shenluo asked again, "He ate 9? That's pretty good, and luckily not 99, or he'd bark forever." Daju was surprised. Had he eaten much more than him? Shenluo asked him not to underestimate Warlock. He was very talented. Let him try on this armor, and after he'd had breakfast, he'd go with him to the granary. Daju agreed, and after a while, they left the house together. Shenluo pointed to the side and thought free guards were cool. Daju told him there were so many zombies they couldn't possibly do anything. But before he could finish, Shenluo told him not to attack. They were free labor and let Warlock distract them. Warlock started barking loudly, and Daju asked why he thought Warlock was so much more important than him. Shenluo asked him not to compare himself to a dog. Even he couldn't do what he could do to a dog. It all depended on one's strengths. Daju asked again, is there anything he can do but Shenluo can't? The protagonist confirmed, of course he can eat shit. Would he dare do that? Warlock turned around angrily, shouting that it was slander. After some time, they found themselves in a grain silo, where they destroyed many attacking zombies while driving a truck. Daju was saying that the truck was so useful, and Shenluo responded strangely. There were a lot of workers in this grain silo, and there shouldn't be a single survivor. He had caused such a commotion. Why wasn't anyone calling for help? Some grain silos have large basements. Maybe they were hiding down there and couldn't hear? This passage must lead to the basement. They needed to go and see what was down there. When they opened the doors, Shenluo realized that these were normal zombies who didn't eat people so cleanly. Perhaps some small animals had mutated in the grain silo, ants or rats, but both live in packs, and there are probably a lot of them. They can't take such risks, no matter how normal everything was before. Safety is more important. At that moment, they were both stunned by what they saw, and Daju exclaimed that there were rats there. Shenluo exclaimed that they needed to get away from here as quickly as possible, and the rats stopped chasing them. Shenluo warned the dog to remember safety when he reached a rat and also ran away. The rats followed them, squealing, asking where they were going. Shenluo and Daju ran as fast as they could, but one of the rats caught up with the protagonist and bit him in the back. He fell to the ground and cursed, causing Daju to say that things were bad for them. He cursed and shouted that Daju should never hesitate when fighting. At that moment, the rats attacked and they began to fight together thanks to magical powers. Shenluo thought that fortunately, the stun gun had enough power to kill them, but the Rat King didn't. He looked around and realized that this rat was clearly a mutant. It doesn't really matter whether a survivor or a zombie is mutated. Everyone's strength gain should slow down, but there's always a special mutant whose strength has skyrocketed due to overexploitation of their life potential. And the bigger they grow, the shorter their lifespan. But meeting a survivor really feels like stepping in dog shit. How unlucky he is. Daju collapsed to the floor from trying to fight the rats, and suddenly he realized this was his chance. He slashed at the rat and screamed for it to die. But the rat responded loudly, screaming that it was useless, and opening its mouth. Suddenly, a bright light appeared behind him. When its teeth touched his body, he realized that one more bite would pierce his armor. Chen Luo entered and realized that the Rat King was at least level 3, maybe even level 4. A simple technique, there's no way he could kill them all in such a short period of time. If he hadn't reached level 2 yesterday, he would undoubtedly have died by now. This rat believed it would first bite Daju, and then him too. Chen Luo realized that in that time, all he could do was rely on the Void Sword and let it die. He used the magic sword and pounced on the rat, which turned around in fear. Chen Luo asked, "Is it trying to escape?" A bright, rather large crystal appeared in his hand, and Chen Luo said, "It has good front teeth. It would make a good weapon." He didn't have the strength, so he should try to pull it out. Daju responded, "Yes," and at that moment he also tried but cried out that it was hard. A moment later, he finally pulled out the Rat King's fang and cried out with joy that it had worked. That was good, so they wanted to go and see the basement. Daju exclaimed that Chen Luo was creating such a huge space, and the protagonist replied, "It's not huge, just about the same size as this granary." They couldn't let on how much supplies he'd stockpiled. Let him remember that. They couldn't tell anyone about this. Daju told him to relax, because he understood that even under threat of death he wouldn't say anything. They looked up, and Daju asked why it had suddenly become dark. MC said, "He must have passed out. Time is short, it's time to go back." After a while he said, "Daju, today's fight with the Rat King was very dangerous. It will be safer to level up. Judging by the speed at which he is currently absorbing crystals, he needs at least 3 days to reach level 3. In the meantime, to avoid getting bored, let him play games or watch movies, okay?" Daju replied, "No problem." Chen Luo went ahead and said, "They agreed, and now they will go eat." 3 days later, MC said, "Warlock, let him wash some more dishes." He looked at him and thought, "What an idiot." Chen Luo took a sip of water from a bottle and said, "For these 3 days, he has become a slave to passions, lost the meaning of life, and is tired of existing." Warlock, he understood correctly that he reached level 2 yesterday, right? Warlock barked in response. MC said, "As they say, a good dog can't train itself. He needs to go find a zombie to get his paws exercised. Let him see if he can practice his new lightning skills." Warlock walked to the door, and Chen Luo told him to wait. Warlock turned around happily and thought, maybe he shouldn't leave. He was worried about his safety, that's why he called. MC came up to him and said he collected 2 bags of trash. On the way, he needs to throw them in the cesspool. Warlock thought, well, he shouldn't even be considered a dog. MC exhaled and said not to make him worry so much anymore. He can pick up the trash and throw it out anytime. He's a grown dog. He's not giving orders. He himself doesn't know how to make him do it. Daju thought, poor Warlock. MC thought, he urgently needs Mayu to take care of the household. He remembers she lived somewhere nearby, in a dormitory for employees of a 5-star hotel. Decided, as soon as he upgrades his abilities to level 3, he'll immediately go check on her. After a while, he went to bed when he suddenly remembered something. He grabbed his head and thought, in his previous life, he had to spend half a month to break through, and now it's only 3 days. He upgraded his abilities to level 3, Warlock. He sighed, and thought, Warlock, in this life he should be glad he's with him. Otherwise, he'd have to fight against him somewhere, and even sneak attacks. The duration of the Void Sword increased from 5 seconds to 20. He finally had the strength to take a walk. He got out of bed and thought it will be dawn, and he'll go look for Mayu. He can still replenish his crystal supply on the way. How good. On the second day, Daju shouted, brother, he found the workers' dormitory. It's here. Chen Luo replied, he's coming. A hotel worker, Liu Wenbo, crawled inside and asked for the 2 of them to be rescued. MC looked around and said, thank goodness. They've been killing for over half an hour. Time to take a break and meet the survivors. He turned around and asked, does he know Mayu? Wenbo replied, he knows. MC asked, is she somewhere in the dorm? The guy pointed forward and said, she lives there, but she's not there right now. On the morning of the disaster, there was a commercial conference, and she was called there to cook. Chen Luo grabbed him by the vest and told him to lead the way, so he could be of some use. After a while, in Linier's cold storage room, the influencer put her hand on Mayu and asked, didn't she hear her? Believe it or not, after the rescue, she'll file a complaint and lose her job. The hotel manager said, Mayu, Linier is an important guest of their hotel. She heard, so she needs to go there. Yer started punching Mayu, and Mayu screamed, there's no room for her. She's a human being too. She needs space. Yer grabbed her by the hair and asked, dare she oppose her? Does she even know who she is? Mayu screamed in fear, and Li Lin, an influential man in business circles, said he thought the remaining food wouldn't be enough for everyone. If she didn't listen, she should throw it out. Yer said she understood. If she was so ungrateful, then let her get lost. The hotel manager said, Mayu, she can see there's not enough space. Let her think bigger. All that's left is to sacrifice her, and she'll run away somewhere else. Mayu asked again, will she run away? There are zombies outside. Where is he suggesting she run? The men started pushing her and saying, yes, they will all think of her. Let her go in peace. Mayu said, manager, it's clear he's sending her to die. The man shouted, stop talking. Let her get out of here. They pushed Mayu out of the freezer, and Yer folded her arms across her chest and said that since she angered her, this is the end for her. Mayu turned around and saw the monsters. She thought, she needs to be patient. She will not let them laugh at her tears. How infuriating. She will pay any price to whoever can kill them. The zombies rushed towards her and she thought, it's a pity. It looks like there is no chance. She closed her eyes and thought, it's funny, she saved them and they sent her to die. At that moment, a scream was heard. Mayu. She turned around and saw MC, who rushed towards her and said, Mayu, it's him, Chen Luo. He came specially to save her. He thought, The chef is not dead, he will have delicious food. He risked so much. Is she touched? Now she will definitely be his chef, Mayu said fearfully. Chenluo, thank you, she. MC covered her mouth and made a quiet gesture. He turned to the monsters and told her to wait until they cleaned everything up and then they could chat. MC and Daju attacked the monsters and Yi-Er saw it through the window in the door and screamed. They were saved. They waited 5 days and finally saved. The last zombie fell to the ground and the people came out of the freezer to meet MC. Yi-Er waved and thanked him for saving them. She said hello and said, she is Lin Yi-Er. She's very glad to meet him. She smiled and thought, if they are also her fans, then that is even better. Chen Luo turned away from her and asked Mayu, what happened? Whatever it is, he will solve everything. He helped her up, and she burst into tears and said, Chen Luo, here, it's her fault. Why save them? MC turned around and said, so it was difficult to cope when everyone agreed. Li Lin apologized and asked if he could send him home. After this whole crisis is resolved, let him find him and get a job. Salary, 200,000 yuan a month. Chen Luo waved his hand and asked, did he have that much money? Daju hit him and shouted, he hates people like him the most. Those who repay kindness with blackened gratitude. Wenbo looked at him and thought, they are very brave. All of them are highly respected people. Aren't they afraid of revenge? Li Lin grabbed his head and said, even though they don't get along, let him help his friend blow off some steam. He just needs to send them somewhere safe. He can set any conditions. MC turned away and thought, it's a pity he has principles. Once he's his enemy, he won't miss the opportunity to kill him. Chen Luo said, even though they offended his man, they don't have to worry. He won't kill them. He'll tie them up, and whether they survive or not is a matter of fate. Li Lin screamed. Does it make a difference whether he does this or kills her? Is this even normal? Daju asked. So when they threw her out, they didn't think about this? And fell to her knees and begged him to save her. She will do anything. MC thought, does she think one word from her and everyone's pants will come off? He ordered her to get lost and called her cheap. He started tying her up and said, he hasn't taken a bath for several days, whether she wants it or not, and the dirt has accumulated. She can help him wash himself. He tied her up and stuffed a rag in her mouth, told her to go, they will leave them to their own devices. Wenbo ran after them and said, he wants to come with him. MC turned around and asked, does he think there is room for him? Is he worth taking? Wenbo screamed, he can. Chen Luo handed him a stick and ordered him to take it. He ordered him to kill a dozen zombies on the street, and then he can go with him. Wenbo answered fearfully, no, he can't. MC looked at him and thought, he gave him a chance and he didn't take it. He said he wouldn't accept him into his team, but he would give him an advantage. He would give him 3 minutes to browse the shops freely, and then he would take him to the dorm. Let him consider this his gratitude. Mayu, he lacks logistics there, no one to cook, and he immediately thought of her. He would rather kill zombies than wash dishes, pots, and the like. He guarantees her safety, food, drink, and he will not offend her. It sounds a little arrogant, but meeting him is the happiest event in her life. So what's the answer? Does she want to leave with him? Mayu screamed. She does. MC said, then welcome to the team. They will wait for this guy, and then they will celebrate well. Throw a feast. Naturally, she will cook. Mayu answered, okay. After a while, they arrived home and MC asked, so basically, he has spatial superpowers, Daju has superpowers, and what about her? She hadn't felt anything special in the last 5 days. Any awakening of her powers? Mayu replied that on the 3rd day, she had a severe headache, but no powers. She didn't remember anything like that. She was constantly hungry and didn't pay attention to anything. MC said that powers don't awaken on the 3rd day, so that's good. That's not bad at all. Now she needs to listen to his instructions and try to feel the strength inside her slowly. Mayu closed her eyes and released fire from her palm. They cried out together. Is that fire? MC thought she had fire magic, which meant the food would be much tastier. She and the master chef, he had hit the jackpot. Half an hour later, Daju said how delicious it was. The chef's dish was incomparable. Chen Luo looked at the variety of dishes and asked, so what are they waiting for? They are starting. He tasted the food and cried out with tears in his eyes. The tofu was so tender and delicious. Finding Mayu was the right decision. After a while, he turned around and thought, it looks like he won't have to wash the dishes anymore. MC told Mayu to take her time. First, she should go with him to look at the room. Let her go and look, and if something is missing, she will tell him. She can wash herself calmly, but be careful. You can't drink raw water. And also, she lost her phone, right? He handed her the gadget and said, this charger and phone are for her. There are movies and books in case she gets bored. And for the next few days, she can't go anywhere. She needs to stay home to level up her abilities. He'll tell her how to level up her abilities a little later. A few days later, MC said, finally level 3. He stood up and said, judging by the speed, it would take him 10 days to level up to level 4. He still needs to go out and replenish his crystal supplies and look for Millie and Mealing. He thought 10 days had passed, and he still doesn't know if they've experienced the horrors of the apocalypse. Although now is not the best time to take them, he needs to go check, so that others don't take them first. Chen Luo started down the stairs and said, after all, this is resurrection magic. People don't hold such power in their hands. He's afraid that he will suffer heavenly punishment. After a while, MC said that he and Daju will go collect the crystals. While they are gone, no one can be let in under any circumstances. Even if the person is dying, it is forbidden. Mayu needs to lock the windows and doors, and do not even stick your head out the window or go outside. Otherwise, she will be responsible for the consequences. She told MC to relax, she knows. After some time, they were fighting monsters, and Chenluo asked Daju, how much did he collect? Daju answered, about 500. MC stretched and said, not bad. He thought the beautiful sisters lived somewhere around here. They will go and see. Chenluo told him to go back to the truck and rest, and he and Warlock will finish here. Daju replied, okay brother. After some time, MC was standing near the building and asked, House 3, apartment 201? He crouched down and told Warlock to go up to apartment 201 and sniff if anyone is home. Warlock replied, now that is a thing worthy of a dog. He turned around and growled, and MC asked, what is it? Warlock rushed into the bushes and barked loudly, and Chenluo screamed in fear, Warlock! A loud meow was heard and a cat jumped out of the bushes. MC looked at her and thought, a cat? How beautiful she is. It would be nice to take her home. He screamed, Warlock, you can't touch the cat. She said, let this stupid dog finally let her go. Chenluo thought in surprise, that voice, a cat that can move the soul? What a coincidence, she needs to be taken. MC asked Warlock, why is he so rude? He picked up the cat in his arms and ordered him to let her go. Warlock thought, okay, it's his mistake. The cat looked at Chenluo and thought, she didn't touch him, didn't provoke him, and this evil dog took her and bit her. MC thought, really? Really? He's very evil. The cat sniffed MC and asked, does he have dried fish? She can smell that there is. Chenluo thought in surprise, how did she know? Was it intuition? But he doesn't mind feeding her. After all, if she ate his food, then that means she's his cat. At that moment, an order was given to release her to Mifan. MC looked up and thought, Millie? Is this cat's name Mifan? Is she hers? But why didn't he meet this cat in his past life? And he hasn't even heard anything about sisters? Millie ordered him to give it to Mifan. Otherwise, he will regret it. Millie ran up to MC and snatched Mifan. She apologized to her and examined the cat. MC frowned and thought, it looks like the sisters are not together now. After all, if Millie is here, then she definitely wouldn't let her take risks alone. Millie cried out in displeasure. Bye. Mifan stretched out her paws and mentally ordered to let her go. He has fish. She wants fish. If he has fish, then he is a good person. Millie asked, Mifan, what's the logic here? She walked up to MC and meowed. She hasn't eaten fish for weeks. Let him give her one. Chenluo thought, what should he do? Maybe he should take this opportunity and start courting the younger one? He squatted down and said, there's a big market nearby where there's fish. They'll go there. He'll take them. He picked up Mifan in his arms and asked Millie, will she join us to look for supplies? She asked again. She? Mifan meowed. Yes. She felt that this man had no bad intentions. He could be trusted. Millie said, but... Mifan frowned and thought, well, there's no need to go anywhere, and they're leaving. If she's old-fashioned, let her wait at home and she'll bring food. Millie cried out, no, no, no. She'll go with them. Let them wait for her. She needs to get something. After a while, she went outside and said, she's ready. She looked at Dazu and said, and this. MC put his hand on his shoulder and said, this is his friend, Sudaju. As they say in games, he is a reliable comrade in arms, and this is his companion, Warlock. He has lightning magic. She can call him Thunder Warlock. Millie looked at Warlock and thought, can a dog release lightning? It turns out that Mifan isn't the only one with superpowers. MC said, his name is Chenluo. He is a spatial mage. And she? Millie replied that Mifan can communicate with people. He must already know. Her name is Millie. She has abilities equivalent to a cleric. Mifan screamed in fear. Zombies! Zombies! MC said to be careful, and Millie said she can increase their powers. She stretched out her hand towards them and released her mana. Chenluo said, that's cool. He thought, she is only level 1, isn't she? And she was able to increase his power by 1/3. Millie looked at the guy's attack in surprise, and Chenluo shouted, get back, he's attacking. Millie screamed, don't. She'd never fought a zombie before, she'd get the hang of it. Still, she needed to take this step. Chenluo looked at her and thought, she was fragile on the outside, but like a stone on the inside. It's no wonder she survived the apocalypse. But the rolling pin would be a real limitation. He asked Daju to give Millie the iron baton. Daju handed her the baton and told her to take it. She could do it. Millie picked it up and thought, she's not afraid. She wasn't scared. She could do it. She definitely would. She screamed loudly. She could do it. She hit the monster with the baton and screamed, poison! She started swinging it around quickly and screaming, poison! MC looked at her in surprise and thought she'd overdone it with her courage. After a while, Millie started to feel nauseous, and Chenluo said she did a good job. He handed her a bottle and told her to drink some water. She took it and thanked him. Mifan looked at them with displeasure and wondered how long they had fussed. Are they going to go get fish or not? A voice was heard at the market on the second level. They had cleaned up well on this level. MC told Millie to take the bag and take whatever she wanted. As much as she wanted. She happily replied, okay. Mifan mentally ordered him to quickly help her open it. Please. MC wondered why he thought her abilities weren't just related to understanding speech. After all, such an ability was unique. It couldn't be mastered at the very beginning. He would definitely get such a rare cat. He still had fresh fish. Let her wait until they returned. He would cook her fish and sauce. Mifan jumped happily and thought, fish and sauce? She wants it. At that moment, Millie took a package of snacks and Warlock barked, reporting danger. Millie turned around and saw a huge monster in front of her. She screamed loudly, and the monster said, hunger, very hungry. He will eat her. Millie threw a bag in his direction and ordered him to step aside. She rushed to run away and collided with MC. He looked carefully ahead and thought, it's a mutant again. Judging by the appearance of this zombie, it's a devourer. He often met such in his past life. They have enormous strength, good defense, and they can also attack, using themselves as living bullets, and they can explode. It looks like he is level 3. Chenluo ordered Millie to hide behind him. No need to be afraid. He is here, he thought, but he is not afraid of him. This is a chance. He attacked the monster and ordered him to die. MC squeezed the sword in his hands and cut it. He ordered Millie not to look. His corpse is disgusting. Millie clung to him and thought he was able to kill this terrible monster with one blow. He really is a handsome man. MC told her to take his hand. He would lead her away from here. After a while, he said, okay, she can open her eyes. She opened them and wondered how she hadn't noticed him before. Chenluo is so handsome. He looked at her questioningly, and she turned away and thought, his reaction, a nightmare. MC thought, he didn't think the devourer who appeared would have such powers. The hero saves the beauty is such a hackneyed trope, but it's so effective. He patted Millie on the head and said, Millie, they will form a team and take care of each other. She said yes. MC said, fortunately, they found good resources. They will go to his place and have dinner there. Millie apologized to Chenluo and said, but she needs to go home and wait for her sister. Otherwise, when she comes back and doesn't see her, she will be very worried. MC asked, how about she go back and wait for her sister, and he will go. Mifan fearfully told her not to agree. She left a note at home, right? Miling will see and won't worry, and she has a premonition that Miling will definitely not come back today. And also, he said that he can cook them fish and sauce. It's fish. Today, everything she said, she has to give her. She wants fish, fish. Millie said okay. Chenluo, is his house nearby? MC answered of course. After a while, she said in surprise, Chenluo, it's only her first time with him, and he spent so much. MC smiled and said, it's okay, she's on the team, let her swoop in. Mifan thought the pink salmon was even tastier than she imagined. After a while, Millie thanked Chenluo for the treat, but she had to go home. She was afraid her sister would worry if she didn't find her at home. MC said it was late, but it was very dangerous now, and it would be even more dangerous for her alone. Honestly, he didn't care where they lived. Why don't he, Daju, and Miyu move in with her? He thought, and most importantly, he could wait for this beauty too. He said he wanted the room next to hers where no one else lived. They would move in right away. Plus, they would take care of each other. Millie replied, okay, but where's the care for each other? It's clear that he cares about her. Chenluo said, okay, then it's decided. MC said, Dashu, Mayu, Warlock, let them pack up. They're moving. After a while, he said, they've arrived. You need to be careful when going out. Millie asked, Chenluo, will everyone be staying with her? She has 4 bedrooms and 1 living room. They'll fit just fine. If no one minds. MC smiled and thought, this is a great opportunity to be closer. He said, okay. At 10 o'clock in the evening, they were eating watermelon. Millie looked at it and thought, there is danger everywhere outside now, but Chenluo is protecting her. He not only fed her, but on the night of the power outage, he brought her light and her favorite watermelon. She hugged Chenluo and said that she thought the happiest moment in her life was meeting him and her sister. MC smiled and thought, his charisma is high, he won't succeed either. He said, they are friends now, they should protect and cherish each other. No need to be so polite to him. He thought, what a pity that he met Millie today. He was too hasty. Otherwise, his face will give everything away. He said, but he is still holding the watermelon. Is she sure that she doesn't want to try first? Will she hug him again? Where will everyone sleep tonight? Millie pointed her finger at the room and said, Sister Mayu, she sleeps here. Previously, classmates sometimes spent the night here when they came to visit her. Brother Daju, he and his sister drew in this room. They will move the bed, and they can live. Chenluo, this is her sister's room. He will be here. MC thought, will he live in Miling's room? And when will she return? He doesn't care. He'll live there first, and then they'll decide. He said, by the way, these crystals are hers. He will teach her how to use them. After a while, he asked, did she understand? Millie created a small glow, and Chenluo said, okay, he'll go to the bedroom to look at something then rest in the room. Millie said, okay, good night. MC opened the door and saw Mifan, who was lying on the bed. She asked, idiot, why did he come? Today she will sleep with him, and tomorrow with Millie. MC asked, does she also know how to share her well-being equally? Well, she is a cat. Then today let her spoil him well. Improve themselves with him together. Mifan meowed in response. After a while, the zombies burned and a scream was heard. Now, the guy said, Miling, they. Zhang Zhen, Miling's classmate, said, Miling, they wouldn't dare. Maybe she's better. Wang Xinwu stood next to him and looked at Miling, the maiden of fire magic. She thought discontentedly, idiots. They could only hide behind her back. Zhen screamed, zombies. Miling thought irritably. She was fed up with them. She quickly attacked the monsters with her fire mana and thought she had expended too much firepower. Even having risen to the 2nd level, she cannot endlessly fight so many zombies. If even she survived with such difficulty, then what about her fragile sister? Did she die of hunger at home, or was she eaten by zombies when she went out to search for resources? Jen asked, Miling, are the zombies dead? Where will they go now? Miling pointed her finger forward and said, that way, they will arrive faster. Xinwu said, okay, then they will continue. Miling thought, Millie, my sister specially left her a chocolate bar, so she must survive. She must hold out until she arrives. At this moment, MC asked, Mayu, did she make barbecue? How will they eat today? Mayu replied that although it couldn't compare to the cooking of top chefs, it would definitely be better than what he ate outside. She marinated it. If he wants, let him try one skewer and tell you, but the barbecue is too smoky. You can't cook it at home. Chenluo said, it's okay. They'll grill it on the roof then. At that moment, a cry rang out. Millie, Millie, is she here? She stood up and screamed, sister. Her sister is back. MC thought, Miling, she's finally here. Millie threw herself into Miling's arms and she screamed, "Sister, sister, she's here!" Chenluo smiled and thought, the sisters meet again. This is not bad, not bad, very touching. And where did these two come from? Jen thought. Miling is the beauty of the school. He never thought her sister was the same. No wonder they'd been after her for so long. Shinwoo replied, yeah, if they can get the sisters, then they will definitely get some. Then Shinwoo looked at the protagonist and thought, who is this? Why is he with Miling? Shinwoo thought, it's unclear. He hadn't heard that Miling had a brother. Then Mifan meowed, and Miling said in surprise, Millie, and this. Before she could finish speaking, she pointed her hands at the protagonist and said, sister, this is Chenluo. While she was gone, fortunately, he took care of her. She said, I see. She thought Millie looked good. Apparently, he really did take good care of her. Then Shinwoo thought, this Miling hasn't paid any attention this whole time, but since she has such a beautiful sister. Then Shinwoo thought, it's better to strike first and turn his attention to Millie. Then he smiled and holding out the bag, said, Millie, if she's hungry, he has some bread. She should take it and eat it. And Shinwoo smiled, pushing his friend aside and said, Millie, she doesn't have to try to be polite with him. She can take it. He has a fried sausage. And Shinwoo looked at him and thought, is he playing for high stakes? Has he lost his desire to live? And then Millie looked at them awkwardly and said, thank you, but she really doesn't want to eat. They can keep it. The protagonist looked at them and thought that these two were too obviously trying to pick up her. Then he asked, maybe they should go upstairs and talk later? Millie approached her sister, took her hand and said, yes, sister. It's not safe downstairs. We need to go home. And Miling thought that she had thought about dragging these burdens out then, but now she couldn't let her sister drag them down with her. It was just about time for dinner, and then they would say goodbye. She said, okay, let's go. Shinwoo thought, his life with the school's beauty begins. Shinwoo smiled and thought, living together, caring for a long time, how can feelings not arise? After some time, MC closed the apartment door, and Miling asked, is there food at home? He thought, of course there is food, but she better listen and not deceive him, otherwise there will be no hope. Then he looked into the room and asked, Mayu, is there any rice left at home? She should cook it. He thought, after all, this is Millie's sister. If he is stingy, she will surely leave. Let her eat rice. Mayu looked at him and thought, weren't they preparing for a barbecue? Then she looked at all the guests and thought, so that's it. The protagonist walked forward and added that under no circumstances should she rinse the rice, they need to save water. She replied, understood. Then Shinwoo looked at Shinwoo and thought, will they look in the kitchen? And he thought, let's go. Then they noticed Mayu pouring water into the rice cooker and thought, water. Shinwoo snatched the bottle from her hands and she indignantly shouted, hey! Shinwoo began to drink greedily and Shinwoo shouted, he shouldn't drink this. Give it back. Mayu asked, can't they pour it into mugs and then drink it? If they drink like this, then what should the others do? And Shinwoo handed the bottle to Shinwoo and asked, does she know how much they suffered on the way? So what if they drank a little of her water? Shinwoo added, exactly. She must understand. This will not happen next time. And the protagonist looked at them and thought that these two cannot stay. Then Shinwoo leaned toward his friend and said, this house is worthy of the school's beauty. Not only is it spacious, but it's also 100% stylish. He agreed. Yeah, it's just a shame there's already a guy here. Then Shinwoo pointed forward and shouted, look. He was surprised. A dog? And a live, uninfected dog too. They thought they could eat to their heart's content. Then Shinwoo pointed at Warlock and said, brother, it's not for him to say, but people are having a hard time these days, so why did he get a dog? Shinwoo folded his arms and added, that's right. He has to listen while there's rice in the house. And when this is over, what should he do? The next second, Warlock bared his fangs in irritation and thought, where are they going with this? Shinwoo said, this dog is too aggressive. If he hurts Millie or Miling, what will he do? He should be boiled. Shinwoo added, it would be better if he killed him. They could wait and they could eat together. The next second, MC stood in front of them, folded his arms and said, enough. He really doesn't have any food here to feed the dogs. But these dogs are them. Get lost. Shinwoo was indignant. Boy, he should listen to his words. He's never fought a zombie one-on-one? And the protagonist asked, zombies? Fought? Indeed, never. He replied that he knew it all along, that he was just a pretty boy who could only lock himself at home. And then he looked at the girls and asked, Miling, when they walked with her, how much did they endure? How much grief did they experience? How many dangers did they go through? Doesn't she know how hard it is to survive these days? And this one even feeds the dog. Isn't that wasteful? Shinwoo added indignantly. They suffered so much along the way, and he's living so well. Isn't that normal? Shinwoo said, they haven't even eaten a grain, and they've already eaten. In response, Miling said, enough. What were they thinking when they followed her? How much did they invest along the way? Didn't they understand it themselves? That's the end. Now everyone is on their own and don't bother each other. Go away. Shinwoo shouted in surprise. She wants to disband the team? Shinwoo shouted, Miling, does she have a heart? Then Shinwoo walked forward and said, they risked so much to protect her, helped find her sister, and she shows them such ingratitude? She kicks them out? And she waved her hand and said, funny, were they protecting her along the way, or was she protecting them? Shinwoo was indignant. He couldn't imagine that such a beauty was also a fool, and she replied, she is so heartless, such a fool. Are they done insulting? If you are done, go away. Then Shinwoo pointed his finger at her and said, fine, Miling. She won, but they will see about that. Shinwoo walked to the exit and turning around, added, they will regret this. After this, the protagonist smiled and petting Warlock told him to kill them somewhere far away. Otherwise, they would have to dispose of the bodies. Warlock thought he could leave it to him. After that, he rushed towards the exit. Miling, noticing this, thought, why did the dog follow them? How far did he run? Meanwhile, the guys were walking down the street and Shinwoo was indignant. This fool, he will finish her off. He must remember his words. Shinwoo added, yeah, I have to show her. And don't forget about the youngest. And Warlock, walking behind them, thought, he'll show them now. He started barking loudly, and the guys turned around, and Shinwoo, smiling, told him to look. The dog meat came running. Shinwoo said, hey, hurry up, they'll eat tonight. The next second, they screamed in fear. Why can he do magic? No, we need to defend ourselves. And then they were mired in a cloud of smoke, and Warlock, walking forward, thought, with such skills, they still want to eat dog meat? Worthless. Meanwhile, Mealy approached her sister and told her to eat more slowly. If there wasn't enough, they would add more. And then she approached the protagonist and, apologizing, said that she had eaten a lot, but he shouldn't worry. She was here, so food would be easy to get. He asked, did she eat everything? Then they would eat too. She blushed with embarrassment and added, she's sorry, it looks like she ate all the food in the house. Is there still enough rice? If not, she'll go look for it. And MC turned around and replied, no need, there's still plenty. Mayu, they haven't eaten the barbecue yet. Then she just has to cook. Mapo tofu, torn cabbage, sweet and sour potato strips, boiled pork in a spicy Szechuan sauce, fried chicken with spices, fried shrimp, spicy crab, beef with cabbage, oh, and fried eggs with tomatoes. Mealing was surprised. Huh? And then Mayu approached the protagonist and answered, no problem, but to cook all this you need at least an hour. He replied, okay, she will cook everything slowly. And then he waved his hand and said, Millie, they have to go. They need to talk. She agreed. Okay, let's go. And Milling, watching them go, thought, alone, nervously, they went into the room together. Chenluo, what does he even want to do? Meanwhile, the protagonist cornered Millie against the wall and asked, she's not worrying about food or water with him now, is she? She confirmed this and began to blush with embarrassment. He leaned closer to her and asked, does she feel safe with him? Isn't she afraid of getting hurt? She confirmed it again, and he said, actually, it's all because she's smart, capable, and obeys him, so he treats her well. But her sister? Will she obey him? And Millie thought that her sister had always been willful, and she didn't know. Most likely she wouldn't. Then he said, Millie, he will ask her, who is more likely to lead to a better existence, him or her sister? With these words, he raised his index finger, and she answered, of course him. He smiled and said, that's why we need her sister first. He couldn't finish, and she asked, we need what? And MC folded his arms over his chest and thought, to directly say train to obedience would sound somehow ominous. Then he coughed into his fist and said, she needs to listen to him, see him as her captain. Otherwise, at the most crucial moment, he and her sister will start arguing. There will be disagreements. Sat a real headache. Does she understand? And she replied, I understand, her sister needs to listen to him. And he raised his index finger again and added, until her sister starts listening to him too, he will not share his resources with her. So for now, he could only let her watch them eat. He patted her on the shoulder and said, when she starts to listen, then he will give her food, and she must remember, they are doing this for her own good. And she said, yeah, it is for her own good. After some time, Miling approached Mayu and noticing the ingredients was surprised. Why so much? She will cook several dishes? Wouldn't that take a whole day? You need to fry one thing, and that's it. She must trust her. Then when they are hungry, there will be nothing left. And she held a bowl of ingredients and noticed. Chenluo told her to cook. It is not for her to decide how much to cook. Then Miling turned around and added, no, this is too much of a waste. We need to talk to him. After that, she approached the protagonist and said, Chenluo, he should tell her not to cook so much. If they eat everything today, what will they eat tomorrow? And he replied that he and Millie had met again today. Millie was happy they should celebrate. Miling objected, but that's not really necessary. That's too much. And he waved his hand and remarked that these were his groceries. She shouldn't interfere. She sighed, approaching the food, and thought, even though she ate everything very quickly, she was still hungry. She was afraid that her stomach wouldn't fit so much. So much food, they definitely wouldn't eat it all. How delicious it smelled. An hour later, the table was set, and Miling thought, strange, 5 people, they need to put out 5 bottles, why is one not enough? Then she looked at Mayu and thought, then she won't drink. She can wash it down with soup. At that moment, Mayu was holding a bowl of soup and said, to the table. Everyone sat at the table, and the main character, looking at Miling, asked, why is she sitting here? She was surprised. Does it matter where you sit? And Mili looked at her and, mentally apologizing to her, thought that Chenluo was very kind. For the sake of her own future, she should be patient a little. Then the protagonist, taking a bowl of rice, asked, will she be comfortable sitting here while they eat? Of course, if she wants to watch them eat, then she can sit. And she indignantly shouted, what does this even mean? And her part? Didn't he say that they would celebrate her meeting with Millie? And he smiled and answered, that's right, but he didn't say that she would eat with them. She can look at the table. Everyone here except her is his people. Only if she is his person can she eat the delicious food that he brought, risking his life. Then he looked at Millie and, pointing his finger at himself, asked, is she on his side, right? She must tell him. She answered, yeah, sister, she is Chenluo's person. Then MC asked, Daju, Mayu and they? Daju, he replied, brother, no matter fire, water, or copper pipes, he will always follow him. Mayu added, he saved her. Her life now belongs to him. Warlock began to bark, meaning that he was also the master's man, and Mifan began to meow, meaning that there was only delicious food here, that she and Chenluo were together in life and death. Then the protagonist smiled, looking at Miling and asked, does she see? Everyone at this table is his friend, that's why he wants to share with them, but her? Well, who is she? She doesn't have any abilities and she wants to sit at the table with everyone, unless she shows him her obedience, calls him brother, extends a hand of friendship, then they can be together. Before he could finish speaking, Mi-ling shouted irritably. Chen Luo, does he want to humiliate her like this? She slammed her hand on the table and shouted, don't you dare mock her. She headed for the exit and shouted, Mi-ling will not feed on handouts. She thought, won't even give one bowl? It's clear that he is mocking her. And then the protagonist said, Yu, she cooked this chicken so well. Come on, Millie, she should try the crab. It's not bad either. She smiled and thanked him. And he added, you should eat fish with rice. You need to eat more. Mi-ling clenched her teeth in irritation and then said, she's going to her place. She thought that in this house they would not treat her like that. Then she opened the door to the room and looked indignantly at the bed and shouted, Mealy, she's good. She gave her room to this jerk, and Mealy looked into the room after her and said that she forgot to tell her. While she was gone, she gave Chen Luo her room for a while, but she shouldn't worry. He is a real gentleman. She guarantees that nothing like that happened. She clenched her fist in irritation and muttered, fine, since he cared about her, let him live here. She can endure it. And then Mealy raised her index finger and added, by the way, Chen Luo said that she can take a bath, but she shouldn't put water in her mouth. If she doesn't feel comfortable, she can just rinse off. She replied, yeah, she gets it. She should go back to eating. After a while, Mi-ling took off her clothes and, going to the bathroom, thought, why does she feel lonely? Maybe he will serve her food? She started to wash herself and thought, but how much will fit in such a tiny refrigerator? Chen Luo, he can laze around, but they will see who has the last laugh. After that, she put on her home clothes and heard one of the people present ask, are they going to eat grapes for a snack today? And she thought, grapes? From a bunch of fruits to eat? Why did they have to choose her favorite grapes? How she wants it. Then she shook her head and thought, no, she doesn't want to. The apocalypse happened so long ago, the grapes were probably frozen and she doesn't want to eat stale ones. Then she looked into the room and called her sister. MC looked at them and thought, no wonder she's the beauty of the school. She has a beautiful face and a figure too. Then Mi-ling took her sister's hand and invited her to her room. And the main character remained on the bed and, picking up a bunch of grapes, said, Millie, she must come back quickly. The grapes are very sweet. He'll leave it for her. Then he handed the bunch of grapes to Mi-ling and said, if you eat grapes, you don't spit out the skins. If you don't eat them, you spit them out. And she looked at him irritably and thought, he definitely did it on purpose. After some time, Mi-ling pushed Millie onto the bed and, pointing her finger at her, said, she really did conspire with some stranger to irritate her. She has to tell her what's wrong, really. She's not helping her at all. With that, she started tickling her, and Millie laughed and said, it tickles, but she won't tell. Yes, she will. In fact, they agreed to become a team, and to avoid disagreements at the crucial moment, they agreed that Chen Luo would be the captain. He's afraid she won't listen to him, so he's deliberately acting this way with her. He talked to her first, and she thinks there's some sense in his words. With that, she raised her index finger, and Mi-ling was surprised. Has she been brainwashed? Only when he shows he has the ability will she begin to obey him. But to use such a dirty trick, ridiculous. He thought he could subjugate her with food, and Mi-ling asked, but what does she plan to do? Resisting is not an option. She looked at her and replied, if he wants her to obey him, then he should act harshly. They will fight him and see who will have the last laugh. After that, she changed her clothes, and Millie asked, where is she going? And she walked forward and answered, if she can't eat someone else's food, then she will go and find it herself. Millie began to look from side to side and shouted, but it will soon be dark. What if she meets some danger? Then she looked at the protagonist sitting next to her and said, Chen Luo, sister wants to go outside. He must persuade her. And he said, sorry, Millie, but he doesn't have any convincing arguments to stop her. Well, since she is worried, he will let her take Mifan with her. If there is any danger, she can warn. With these words, he patted Mifan on the head, and she thought, Chen Lu does not get along with her. All women are pigs, so willful. And then the protagonist kicked Warlock and added, there is also Warlock. He will trail after her. He thought, on such a hot day, he absolutely has to go out and suffer. How annoying. Then Millie clenched her fists and asked, then can she go with her sister to help her? The protagonist replied, of course. She must be careful and also take a taser with her. After that, she headed for the door, and MC thought, Mi-ling, if she really treated him well, he wouldn't have to use such a prank. But the next second, he remembered how she grabbed his arm and shouted, Chen Luo, he steals food every day. Is he addicted to it? He must give it to her. She kicked his buttocks and shouted, they will see how she deals with him today, he thought, but she was the one who kicked his buttocks in his past life. He will only take revenge. Is that too much? But he really can't squander like this anymore. He needs to win her over as soon as possible. 10 minutes later, Mi-ling held a packet of noodles in her hands, and placing her hand on her waist, said, tonight she's eating beef noodles with soy sauce and an egg. Although it's not a feast like some, it's enough for her. The protagonist smiled, and, covering his smile with his hand, thought, he doesn't know why she thought there was real beef in these noodles. After that, he approached Yu and said, he also wants to eat beef noodles, she should cook them. She replied, okay. Then the protagonist looked at Mi-ling and, smiling, thought that tonight they would introduce her to real beef noodles. He said, Mi-ling, she shouldn't behave like this. He came closer and offered to talk to her. She replied, okay, they will see what he has to say. After some time, they sat down at the table, and the protagonist, folding his arms over his chest, said, first of all, he really did go a bit overboard during the day. He should first apologize to her. She slammed her fist on the table and shouted, is he thinking up some new mockery again? Chen Luo, he is completely illogical. And he replied, he sincerely apologizes. It is true that he acted wrongly during the day, but until she acknowledges him as captain, he will not share supplies with her. Captain is a position that requires diplomacy and strength, He will prove himself to her, no matter how, but he will break her. Then he raised his index finger and added, first by force. In 3 days they will fight, and if he loses, he will obey her. And she was surprised. Seriously. The protagonist smiled and answered, of course. She said, okay, but why in 3 days? We can do it today. No, right now. She suggested fighting right now, and he said that his control over his powers is poor right now. He's afraid that he will accidentally hurt her. He folded his hands in front of himself and thought, in 2 or 3 days he will be able to rise to level 4, and then his control will be even more stable. He said, even more so? There is no point in challenging him to a fight. She is not capable of defeating Warlock. She shouted, he is talking nonsense. She can't even handle some dog? And he answered, okay, she is stronger than Warlock, so be it. She thought indignantly, he's humiliating her. Then she turned her gaze to the irritated Warlock. At that moment, a woman knocked on the door and asked, Mealy, are they home? Mealing, she sees that she's come. She should help. Give her some food. She hasn't eaten anything for 2 days. She should give her food. Mealing approached the door and asked, has it been 2 days already? She says she ate before that? The protagonist looked at her and thought, how could her answer be so natural? Then Milling opened the door a crack and said that she didn't have any food either. She should leave. Millie approached her and said, sister. And Milling looked at her and told her to remember, no matter how much they give, she will eat it all in a day. She will eat it and go back to them. What should they do? Give it back? Survival is hard. Only the strongest survive. Then the protagonist approached them and folding his arms across his chest remarked, Mealing, she is very smart, and she replied, he should lie less. In 3 days they will see where all this self-confidence comes from, he said, with pleasure. After that, he leaned towards Mifan, who approached him, and she said, Chenluo. She felt that the man had bad intentions. He picked her up in his arms and said, okay, he understands. I don't care what his intentions are. She must go out and not leave. Meanwhile, the woman walked up the stairs and said, that fool is really so mean. It pisses her off. The guys gathered nearby asked, did she check? Is Mealing home? She answered, at home. They just talked. And Millie too, she saw how she and 2 men walked back and forth around the neighborhood. Great, the girls survived. It would all have been in vain. He can only hold out if he takes the medicine. But when they see him with Mealing, they will be able to do it even without the medicine. He and that face and that body, indeed, beauty is worth dying for. For a little fun, you can even die. Then the men armed themselves and one of them shouted, damn, he can't wait, hurry up! And the woman walked forward and pointing her finger shouted, they must go and check on those freaks. We need to give them a good thrashing. At that moment, Daju was watching them from the window. He said, brother, people have arrived. He must bring weapons. They mean no good. And the protagonist patted Mifan and told him to deal with them. Don't kill them in the hallway, otherwise we'll have to leave. He said, okay. He grabbed his weapon and Mealy channeled energy into him and said she would give Daju an additional buff. Then he walked to the exit and said he'd be back when he was done. Warlock ran after him and started barking. Then Mealing looked at the protagonist and thought, the guy's really handsome, if you look closely. Great, they'll just see if this jerk and his dog are really that cool. Then Warlock started barking, and the men shouted, let them just watch. They'll eat dog meat today. The men surrounded Daju, and then Warlock ran up to them and started barking loudly, wishing them dead. The next second, Daju turned and swung his weapon at the man next to him, and he shouted, no fair. The others said, no him. No need to panic. Attack. They started hitting Daju, and one of the attackers shouted, is this even a human? Why isn't there a scratch on him? His comrade shouted, superpowers. They haven't awakened yet. Hurry up. Then Warlock began concentrating his energy, and one of the men shouted, the dog has 2. After that, Daju added another blow, knocking the man to the ground. MC folded his arms over his chest, watching the scene unfold, wondering if he taught Warlock how to distract attention. Had he taught himself? He then turned to Millie and ordered her to get the crystals from those 6. It was between their eyebrows. She looked surprised, pointing at herself, and asked, she? He smiled and replied, she might be a backup, but some things need to be done on your own, so as not to interfere with the battle at the most crucial moment. Then Mealing looked at her and said, Millie, she was bound to face this sooner or later. Better now, while it's safe to get used to it a little. Millie looked at her with fear, and Mealing thought, little sister, honestly, this is revenge for not helping her back then. After that, the protagonist handed Millie a knife and told her to take it. He would go down with her. She replied, okay. After a while, they went outside, and Daju was holding the man's body. The protagonist came closer and told him to let Millie try this time. She approached the body with tears in her eyes, holding a knife in her hands, and thought, during the day, she and Chenluo were against her sister, and now they were putting a spoke in her wheel. Then she looked at Warlock and asked, maybe he could help her? He shook his head and thought, thanks, but this is no dog's business. After that, Mealy plunged the knife into the man's forehead and thought the blow was too strong. She emptied her stomach to the side, and the protagonist said she must empty her stomach. Daju, he used to be like that too. Then he added, she should go back. Let Mayu make her beef noodles. She will replenish what she has emptied. After a while, Milling looked at the prepared portion of noodles and thought, are they eating beef noodles or just beef? Do they have noodles like that? And MC handed Millie a plate and said, come on, give her more. And she said, thanks Chenluo, but she doesn't want any. And Milling thought, neither did she. The next morning, Milling was sitting apart from everyone else, and turning to the table with the others thought, the scallion pancakes smell so delicious. I also want soy milk. Damn, greedy. She won't be able to eat at the same table even at lunch. That same day, she thought, I can't stand the smell all day. Food, no matter what they eat, there's so much in the fridge. And in the evening, she looked at the table and thought, why are there so many dishes again? The fridge is so small, they should have already emptied the fridge with just 2 dishes. The next second, she ran to the fridge and, opening it, looked inside in bewilderment. After that, she looked at the protagonist and shouted, why is the fridge full again? When did he leave? No, even if he had, they wouldn't have been able to get so many fresh products. Then Millie approached her and explained, Shenluo actually has spatial abilities. He stocked up on food for several years ahead. And she cried out in surprise, what? Why didn't she tell you earlier? In response, Millie awkwardly scratched the back of her head and, apologizing, said that she forgot. Then Millie put her hands on her waist and, turning to the protagonist, said, according to their agreement, they will fight in 2 days. If he loses, as he said, he will listen to her. He replied, she should relax, he will satisfy all her demands as much as possible, but who knows, maybe they will start tomorrow. And she turned away and, folding her arms across her chest, said, they will see about that. She thought that he would lose and lie at her feet and call her sister, and then he will feed her. At that moment, the protagonist looked at his hands and thought, the 4th level, he just needs to break through. He will be able to use the spatial gate. This not only guarantees increased strength, but also creates transmutations, which he'll soon do. After a while, he sat on the bed, concentrated his energy, and thought, the level 1 survivor crystals he'd already used changed the limitation. Now he could try the Rat Kings. Energy spread through his body, and the next second he clutched his head. Noticing this, Mifan worriedly wondered, is he alright? And then the protagonist frowned and thought, finally, level 4. Mifan meowed questioningly, and he laughed, looking at her, and said, this artifact still has half its energy left, it's worth taking. She should wait for him in the room. He will go and test his new powers. The next second, MC appeared in the room, and Warlock barked in fear. The protagonist smiled, looking at him, and told him not to be afraid. It was him. And Warlock thought, he's guarding the doors here instead of him, and he came to scare him? After a while, Mealing folded her arms across her chest and, looking at the protagonist, asked, did he deliberately make Warlock bark in the middle of the night so she wouldn't get enough sleep? And Warlock thought, now he's really scared him. The protagonist replied, she thinks too highly of herself. First, she needs to eat, and then they can test their strength. She asked, they won't wait until tomorrow? Then she said that before that they would agree. If she could win, would he listen to her? He replied, of course. She seemed overconfident. Would they add a prize? He raised 3 fingers and said, perimeter 20 meters, 3 seconds. He, honestly, could move her. If he couldn't, she could consider herself winning. She asked, Chen Luo, she admits that he is strong, but only 3 seconds? Isn't he underestimating her too much? And he smiled and replied, that's not true. He's just very overconfident. She thought, as soon as the battle begins, she will back away. She doesn't believe him. She asked, and what is the prize? He turned his buttocks towards her and, smiling, said, it's very simple. She will be able to hit his buttocks, but 1 kick. She was surprised. Huh? And if she loses, then she kicks him too? He replied that she could kick him to death, as much as she wanted. That's all she had to do. Or, if she had any desires, he would do everything. He thought, he won't lose after all. After some time, they stood a short distance from each other. The protagonist said, if there are no objections, then they will begin? She shouted, okay, they will begin. And then she got into a stance and thought that she didn't believe it. They managed to pull her out in a measly 3 seconds. The next second, her eyes opened in surprise. She began to look from side to side and thought, she just saw him with her own eyes. How did he disappear? From behind. At that second, MC appeared from the portal behind her and grabbed her by the neck. She grabbed his hand, trying to get out of the grip, and he sighed and said, Mealing, she lost. And she thought, if Chen Luo pinched her, she wouldn't use her hands, but a sharp dagger. Then she noticed that she had lost. She thought, what should she do? Kick him in the buttocks? And then the protagonist put his hand on her shoulder and said, now let's have breakfast. She and he, Mealing, are together. He smiled and added, about the day before yesterday, he was wrong. But they are comrades in arms now, so they need to become friends early. After some time, Mayu put the food on the table and, smiling, looked at Mealing. She told her not to be shy. If there is not enough, there is more. She will bring her more soup. And Mealing's mouth opened in surprise and thought, how delicious it smells. At such a decisive moment, refusing again would be extremely impolite. Besides, she doesn't want to refuse. She tasted the food and thought, how delicious. MC, hiding a smile, thought, no problem. Mealing is his man now. Then he said thoughtfully, since everyone has eaten their fill, then they should go and sit in the living room. He pointed to the side and added, now they need to discuss the next plan. After some time, everyone gathered in the living room, and the protagonist said, from the very beginning of the apocalypse, he had a feeling that the zombies were gradually getting stronger. If they wanted to resist them and survive, their only chance was to unite, and supplies were getting harder and harder to come by. One person fighting for food with a bunch of zombies is certain death. Therefore, it was inevitable that the survivors would band together and live together for salvation. The next second, Mifan jumped onto his lap and he added, although their group was strong, if they faced 100, they would only win with losses, and he definitely couldn't allow that. To take another one onto the team, frankly, he would be reluctant to obey anyone. Why would he adapt to anyone? Besides, Mealing, they're as beautiful as flowers. What if others want to sleep with them? And Mealing said in surprise, Whoever dares look at her or her sister, she'll castrate them. The protagonist said that's why they can't accept others into the team, and they don't want them to belittle them. Then they'll create their own team, a much larger one. Of course, they don't want some trash. Then Millie reached out to the protagonist and noted that he was right. They'll just create their own group. Daju said that he heard brother. And then the protagonist added, there are a lot of zombies in the city center, but usually people will choose to run to the outskirts and fawn there. If their decision is correct, then soon clusters of people will begin to appear in the outskirts one after another. Then Mealing said that she had also thought ahead without him. She also believed that his words were logical. And he looked at her and thought, according to her words, she even believes him? What luck. When will he repay the debt? Finally, he will repay for her kick. Mealing, if she loves to play, she should be able to pay. Excuses are even better, then the blows will be endless. If she wants to resist, it will not work either. But kicking Mealing in front of everyone is not becoming. Then he got up from his seat and said, okay, it's agreed. For now, they will not worry about expanding the team. Mealing, she must go with him to the room. He has business that needs to be discussed with her. And she asked, what business can't they discuss here? He thoughtfully answered, it's personal. And she thought, really? He will really kick her? She agreed herself. Okay, just one kick? Nothing special? After that, they entered the room, and Mealing, putting her hands to the wall, blushed with embarrassment and said, okay, he should kick faster. And he scratched his ear and asked, didn't she understand that she was supposed to stick her butt out? Or did she not study Chinese well? And she thought, how embarrassing. Is it all that serious? Then she turned around and shouted, no, she doesn't understand something. Why does he want to kick her? Maybe he should change the punishment? Just not that serious, she'll agree to anything. And he shook his head and asked, if she likes to play, she should be able to pay. Will she do it or not? And she thought irritably, Chenlo, you bastard. She said, fine, she Mealing is responsible for her words. She turned around, looked at him, and said, hurry up. And he clenched his fists looking at her buttocks, and thought that he never expected that someday in the future he would do such a thing with a fiery maiden. How beautiful. Indeed, few people can stand it. Mealing thought that if she didn't take off her shoes, it would be easier. Did Chenluo really not want to kick her hard? She wondered if he dared to hit her hard, she would pay him for it. Mealing started screaming. Why was he hesitating? She counted to 10. If he wasn't being pushy, then he shouldn't say she wasn't keeping her promise. He himself had refused. She started counting from 10, and Chenluo thought that he had brought this and would settle all the scores at once. But there was no need to take revenge. Was he looking for her just to kick her? She continued screaming, and he realized that although a kick would be cool, how could he live with this feeling? This made him angry and realized he didn't have time, so he hit her on the butt with his hand, and she cried out in embarrassment and pain. When she turned around, she screamed. She gave him permission to kick her. Why did he hit her with his hand? He replied that he'd forgotten. Maybe she'd let him kick her again. Mealing screamed, she'll crush him right now, and became very angry. Chenluo replied that it hurt, and that she should have mercy on him. Mealing screamed that if he dared to say such a thing, she would definitely strangle him. Chenluo replied that he would go then, and that she should tell Ma Yu to cook her favorite dish for dinner, and consider it a banquet in honor of her official joining their team. She screamed. If he dared to joke like that again, she'd get angry. At that moment, Mealing wondered why he hadn't asked her what food she liked. Had Millie really told him everything? When she was at the table, she realized that if Chenluo hadn't been there, she would never have eaten so much delicious food. Because of this, she began to thank him for taking care of her sister. Chenluo replied that he had done everything he had to, and that she should feel free to attack the food. He had news for everyone. It would be easy to lure survivors here to search for resources. Besides, the area was poorly visible and unsuitable for long-term residents, so everyone should clean up after lunch. They'd be heading to the previous villa tomorrow and checking it out along the way. If there were any suitable people, they'd bring them in. He thought it was pretty good. The more people, the safer, but he could relax. It was just the right time to give the sisters some training. Suddenly, he heard shouts for Fan Yu. He should save himself and not worry about them. He should run. Stop talking such nonsense, dying together like this. Chenluo remembered what happened when they were attacked by poisonous snakes. If he'd left the three of them to be eaten by zombies, they might have escaped, but he didn't. Fan Yu started shouting that if he could save them, then let him. He wouldn't hold a grudge. Chenluo thought he was not bad, and answered him with a smile. Okay. At that moment, Warlock ran out of the truck and shouted that he understood everything. When they used magical powers, people were surprised. Don't her eyes blur when Warlock is too strong? Fan Yu continued to beg for salvation, and watched in bewilderment as the zombies died. After they managed to defeat him, Fan Yu approached Chenluo and thanked him for saving them. He can't speak, but if there's room, he shouldn't be shy about saying so. Chenluo asked again, how are they feeling? Have their powers awakened? He answered yes. His name is Fan Yu, and he is the eldest of the fourth. He is in the third heaven and can increase his strength and strengthen his body. The next guy is Shuyan. He had no magic. The next guy is Fei. He has the fifth heaven of magic and lightning, but he can't compare in strength to their dog. And the last one was Lan. He has the fifth heaven of earth magic and controls sand and stones. This is the seventh heaven. He said that they were all from the organization's security. They had been fighting together for many years. Just think. But today, while searching for resources, they encountered poison-spitting zombies and killed almost all of them. Chenluo introduced himself and said that the stronger they are, How about forming a team? Of course, he will be the captain. Fan Yu replied that he would be very grateful. Besides, if he refused, it would be a real shame. Chen Luo opened the trailer of his truck and then told them to climb into the back. But before they rested, was there anything they needed to take with them? No matter how important it was, they should leave it. There was a lot of stuff on the way to the store. When they arrived at their multi-story building, Chen Luo pointed to the side and said that there were no people there. They could clean up there, live for a while, and then he would find them. Ban Yu replied, okay. Miling came out to him and said that these four were really good. Not only were they unafraid to kill zombies, but they also didn't abandon their own in moments of life and death. Chen Luo replied that this was true, and that they had pleasant faces, but they shouldn't forget about self-defense and always be on guard. Dazhu asked him not to worry, as they understood him. After that, Chen Luo turned to Miling and Mili and asked them to choose a room on the 3rd floor, while Dazhu and Ma Yu would live on the 2nd floor. Then they would do a general cleaning. Chen Luo turned to Dazhu and asked him to come with him. He would show their neighbors around. He replied, okay. Meanwhile, the new team of guys was discussing how cool that warlock was. Honestly, they couldn't believe the dog had such powers, and it seemed like the 4 of them couldn't defeat it. They needed a little more self-confidence. Chen Luo overheard their conversation and asked which of them could cook. They could use that. He handed them the bags, and Fan Yu thanked him for saving their lives, and they hadn't repaid him yet. How could he bring anything else? Let him take it back. They'd find something themselves. MC smiled and asked them not to be shy, because they were now considered to be on his team. What did it mean to give him a little food? After they ate, they could rest, and after lunch, they could sort out the villa's supplies and give them to him for safekeeping. Of course, only after he became important members of the team would he give them meat. He turned to Dazhu and asked him to give them his radio, and Fan Yu thanked his captain for it. Chen Luo also said he planned to stay here longer, so after lunch they would all go explore the villa. If there were any wounds, they should rest. If something happened, they should report it by radio. Fan Yu replied that he understood everything. And at that moment, Miling, angrily, said he took Dazhu with him, but why her? She couldn't calmly leave Mili with the others if something dangerous happened. He grabbed her by the hair and jumped slightly, muttering that someone was coming. They hid behind the bushes, and a moment later, a beautiful girl, whom they recognized as Tiange, pulled up on a bus. Chen Luo was very surprised and asked how he'd forgotten about this sycophant. Miling asked in surprise, does he know her? He replied that she had finally become the head designer at a clothing design company and was very famous. Too bad she was completely nuts. After the end of the world, she and her subordinates formed a gathering place for surviving women. At first, it was a kind deed, but she absolutely refused to allow her subordinates to get into trouble with Chen Luo, even resorting to severe punishments. She was the #1 womanizer. They say she even died for Miling, and after she took her place, the team slowly began accepting men. Tianjie must have brought her subordinates along to gather supplies. It seemed under his influence that the police and Tianjie had met earlier, but he chuckled at the fact that he was a good suck-up, especially if she was loyal to him. She noticed his gaze and asked again, why was he looking at her like that? Chen Luo chuckled and answered, nothing, just, and suddenly they heard a scream. Who was hiding here? Chen Luo realized he remembered her. It seemed her name was Shu Yun. She possessed strong ice magic. It was just a pity that in the past she died too early. When Tianjie approached Miling, she greeted him and, with a friendly look, asked permission. What was her name? Miling also introduced herself, and Tianjie greeted him and said that they were an all-female team. How about she join them too? Chen Luo thought about it, and she was taking her away right in front of his face, and she didn't even look him in the eye. Miling apologized, but she already had a team. Tianjie asked again, is this her boyfriend? Chen Luo asked, why should it bother her? Miling blushed, after which they turned around, and Chen Luo suggested that Miling go and catch up with the others while they had time. They would clean up the area. Tianjie frowned and realized that this was one of those cold and greedy womanizers, and he still had the nerve to take such beauties. She had to show Miling his true colors. They would stop here today and let the girls begin searching separately. But how could she show Miling his true colors and make her join them? After some time, Chen Luo came to her and said that it didn't seem like they knew each other well, and she wanted to have a heart-to-heart talk under the moonlight here. Tianjie replied that she wanted to discuss something with him, and he asked again, what? Tianjie pointed to the side and said that there was a shopping center 3 kilometers to the east with a ton of supplies. All she had to do was bring them, and they would have enough food for at least a year and essential goods for 10 years. But it seemed there were a lot of zombies there, so she couldn't secure a spot, so she offered to cooperate. When they finished, he'd get 30%, she'd get 70%. After all, there were more of them, and naturally, they were stronger. Chen Luo was surprised and mentally asked himself, isn't this the mall where they'd seen the mutant zombies themselves? But he'd already taken all the supplies, so why would she need to go there to watch the zombie dance? He replied that he couldn't do that because he was a coward, and there were at least several hundred zombies there, and he wouldn't dare go. Tianjie got angry and thought, okay, he's a coward, but why bother pretending to be a coward? He's just a wimp. How could Miling like him and his friend? Chen Luo told her good riddance, and Tianjie realized she'd wanted to show him his true colors at the mall in a moment of danger, seize the moment, and get rid of him. But the fish weren't biting, so what should she do? It was simply useless, and the only thing left was to find help. Chen Luo realized this creature really wanted to get rid of him, so she could be with Miling. He hadn't realized in his past life how cruel she was. He hadn't even considered fighting her, but she was the one plotting first. Fine, but she shouldn't blame him. He couldn't let threats slide. Who would he send to deal with her? He turned his attention to Warlock and realized who would be waiting for this? This pleased him. After a while, Tiange knocked on Feng's door and asked if he was there. He opened the door and asked who else dared call him Feng. Actually, his full name was Jiang Feng, but she could call him whatever she wanted. Tiange thought, damn courier, she wouldn't even be looking for him if it weren't for Mealing, but he can control the wind, and that's really good. She has business with him, and a few minutes later she explained everything and spoke up. Here's the situation. She needs him to drive away the zombies with his wind, so she'll train this lout. Does he understand? Feng clapped his hands and said he understood what she meant. It was an honor to help the captain, and besides, he also hated louts. But after he helped her, he broke off and smiled. Tianjie asked again, does he want profit? When he finished, she'd let him join them. He thanked her for it and said he'd definitely prove himself. He wanted to become a lout too, he just didn't have the strength. His Shaoling was waiting for him. Soon they could spend the whole day together. He remembered Daju guarding that villa. He hadn't found it last time, but this time he'd take a good look. After a while, he found himself among the monsters, shouting at them that they wouldn't catch him. He apologized to the lout, when suddenly Chenluo appeared before him with Daju. They looked at him confidently, and Feng asked fearfully, Daju, why is he here? Chenluo asked Warlock to wait, and Warlock continued barking, when Feng suddenly turned to the monsters and realized he was in a dire situation. Tiange said his friend would be here. They couldn't hurt each other just to join their party. He shouted for Daju to wait here. He would lead the zombies away. Chen Luo chuckled at the fact that it was Feng. In their past lives, they had been friends. He had helped them so many times when they were gathering resources by leading away zombies. Unfortunately, he was walking a tightrope. Not even a few days had passed before he was torn apart by zombies. In his past life, his death was truly tragic. Feng asked, Dashu, why is he here? He apologized to him since he had scared him by bringing so many zombies. He replied that everything was fine. He knew he didn't bring the zombies to harm him. Chenluo asked, did Tianjie order him to bring the zombies? He asked again, how did he know about this? Was he really that lout? Chenluo asked him if the others knew about this. Feng scratched his head in confusion and replied that it was just the two of them back then. And she said she wanted one and said that at the crucial moment, he would appear. Chenluo understood what he meant when suddenly they heard a loud sound, and the protagonist thought that, judging by everything, it looked like 5 zombies had mutated. A bus was approaching these zombies, and Tiange got out and told them not to stop the car and speed up. She understood. Feng must have brought these zombies. He did a good job. Tiange asked Milling to stand still and wait for her. At least the zombies wouldn't eat her. At that moment, the bus began ramming everyone around it, and the zombies tried to destroy it with a bright flame, causing a fire. And the girls began screaming in fear. There was a gas canister in the car, and they needed to be careful. All the girls got off the bus when Tianjie yelled for them to slow down and step aside. She couldn't understand where such mutants were coming from. Tianjie shouted at the girls not to panic and fire at him. She pulled out a dagger and shouted for everyone to attack immediately. Tianjie pounced on the advancing zombie that used fire powers and realized why it was running straight at her. At that moment, she grabbed one of her girls and placed her right in front of her to protect herself. The monster ate this girl, and Chenluo said that she reaps what she sows, and she was probably full of energy, so he would gather it. The girls began to discuss whether they were imagining it. How did the captain do it? Was she the one who led them away when the apocalypse happened? How could she use her people as a human shield? She realized that Chenluo had arrived just in time. She could use this coward to cross the zombies. She ran up to him and Chenluo said, Captain Tiange. At the decisive moment, she used her fighting companion as a shield. Remarkable, isn't it? He hit her and said he didn't think she was like that. Tiange was thrown aside, wondering where he got such strength. She landed right next to the zombie, which began to destroy her. Shuyun was frightened and shouted to the other girls to run, and she would deal with him. Chenluo smiled and realized that Shuyun was a tough girl. She didn't look to anyone for help, and she would subjugate anyone. Such bravery was commendable. He couldn't let her die. When the protagonist fought this monster, he told them to go and destroyed the last one. Everyone was surprised. Could he really have destroyed them so easily? Feng confirmed his strength, and Chenluo turned to Shuyun and told her to throw the canister. Was she expecting an explosion? She threw it aside, and the canister exploded in mid-air, causing the girl to cover her mouth in fear, and with tears in her eyes, say that it was finally over. She fell to her knees in fear, and Chenluo announced that everything had worked and had assembled a core from the monster. He asked Shuyun not to cry and let her lean on him. She could comfort her friends. The dead also needed a funeral. Shuyun thanked him for these words, after which Chenluo asked if they had a plan for what to do next. They were surprised, and Shuyun thought that survivors always live on. When they returned home, Chenluo started drinking coffee and heard the sound from the door, indicating that Shuyun had finally arrived. He jumped up joyfully and said he was already on his way to her. He hadn't wasted his 50 tons of rice as bait. She just needed to join his squad. He would do everything to ensure that they were starved to death in the short term. Shuyun became sad, saying she needed to talk to her friends. When the answer came, she would find it, okay? He smiled and, opening the door, saw the entire squad of girls and realized that he had taken the squad from Tiangu. Shuyun announced that there were 20 of them left and they wanted to join his squad. Chenluo responded without a problem, but they had to abide by his rules. First, they must always obey orders. If they join and disobey, they shouldn't accuse him of cruelty. Of course, no intrigues. Second, they shouldn't tell him they can't be afraid. There are no gender distinctions here, and everyone is equal in battle. Third, if they need a partner, they must look among them. This is possible outside, but he must join them, so to speak. One of the girls asked, "What's that word?" He answered correctly. This would not only prevent the candidates he'd so carefully cultivated from leaving, but more importantly, it would help avoid people with bad intentions. For crossbreeding, they must look among their own. Shuyun replied that she had no questions. What did they think? The girls replied that they had no questions either. Chenluo gestured to the room and thanked them for their trust. Shuyun would temporarily be in charge of them, and they could also contact him. They could come in before it was too late, and they'd throw them a surprise lunch. There was plenty of food on the table, fresh French fries, and the girls were amazed. Their eyes were swimming. There was so much sauce. How lucky they were. They shouldn't fight. 1 bottle per person would be enough. The guys were discussing among themselves that it seemed they would soon be saying goodbye to their bachelor life. 7 guys, about 20 girls. Very good. They were lugging boxes and saying that they didn't eat such things and were playing them for the girls' amusement. Bang exclaimed to Chenluo that he wanted to join him too. Would he take him? Chenluo was thinking about 6 people with power magic, 4 with fire, 2 with lightning, 4 with ice, 2 with earth, 1 with nature, and 1 with light. At that moment, he was very surprised and realized that this name seemed to be Feng's. The 3rd day of awakening is not bad, and he'll have to pay attention. It seems Shuyun has the best gift of all and has king-level potential. He turned to Fan Yu and Lan, informing them that tomorrow he'll lead a squad to get used to it, and they'll help him watch the house. There aren't many people, so he warns that those who don't obey can be beaten. If there are many, then they should wait until he returns. The guys replied that they understood, and the next day arrived. A truck, a bus, and a trailer were on their way to get the loot. Chenluo figured that about 300 or 400 would be enough to get the team used to it. He shouted for them to form up and told Feng to control the zombie numbers. If there were more than 100 zombies at a time, he should lead some away. He exclaimed, "Excellent. They're starting." He shouldn't worry. The magic wielders and their powers should follow his rhythm, calmly. All the girls also rushed into battle and fought the zombies. One of the girls asked who missed. Actually, that was her target. The zombies started spreading, and one of the girls got scared and screamed for help. They weren't done with these ones yet. Where did the other monsters come from? Chenluo clutched his head and realized his aim was also lacking. If he hadn't sat there, they would have been destroyed without a second thought. Much work was still needed. 2 hours later, Chenluo came out to the girls and announced that this was their first time, and everyone had worked hard. They should get ready and choose suitable clothes. He handed over several boxes of clothes, and the girls began sorting through them. Miling, seeing the stockings, became very embarrassed and began to wonder if Chenluo really had such a strange fetish that he liked wearing them. He wasn't that perverted, so who was this for? But the color didn't suit her personality. One of the girls exclaimed that the clothing store had a supermarket and it was full of resources. They should go and see it. Another girl exclaimed with delight that she saw mineral water and was dying to drink it. She would finally be able to. Xian asked her to wait and not drink, then turned to Chenluo and asked if they could share a bottle of water. He replied that each could take 2. Millie thought about how good it was to have Chenluo. Since she was with him, she hadn't gone hungry or thirsty, and he cared for and protected them. She'd been suppressing this for so long. She'd tell him everything in the evening. When evening came, she knocked on his door and asked if she could come in. Chenluo said yes, and was surprised that it was already late. Why had she come? Wasn't it by any chance to give him a chance to do something dirty? When Millie entered the room, she sat down next to him and embarrassedly said that in fact, when she looked at Shuyun and her friends today, she realized even more how lucky she was to have him. Chenluo was surprised. Why was she saying such a thing? She continued to say that she actually had something she'd been hiding for a long time, and Chenluo wondered, judging by her reaction, if she really liked him. She abruptly said she wanted to be his girlfriend. How did he like that idea? Chenluo exclaimed. Of course she knows how long he's been waiting for this moment. He pushed her onto the bed and kissed her cheek, thinking about how suddenly happiness had befallen him. Millie exclaimed and said she wasn't prepared for this, which made her embarrassed. Chenluo said that in such a world, no one knows how long they'll live, and that today is here, but tomorrow isn't. And by the time he waits for her, he might already be dead. What if she regrets it? Millie thought it seemed true, and said that in that case, she was ready and wrapped her arms around his neck, then hugged him tightly. Suddenly, they heard a rustling sound and both turned around. Mifan was there, and Chenluo wondered why she was still in the room. He threw the cat aside, and she was angry that he hadn't been like this before. Miling saw the cat outside the door and wondered why it hadn't slept with him, but had run into the living room. Mifan was thinking about Chenluo bullying Millie there. In her opinion, she was an intolerable girl, and he was probably afraid that this would help her and dissuade her from doing so. Miling asked again, "What, bully? What was that even?" She tried to enter the room when Warlock suddenly began barking that she couldn't enter without his master's permission. Before knocking, she thought that if Millie wanted it herself, What was the point of her interfering? She didn't care at all. It was just a matter of time. After a while, Chenluo came into the room and asked Mayu to make 2 scrambled eggs. He was also happy today, so let her cook the boys a 10-kilogram pig for lunch. Mayu replied that she understood everything, but why hadn't Mili eaten yet? She usually doesn't oversleep. Miling asked again, why more? Someone had spoiled her. Chenluo chuckled, realizing she'd found out. Mayu blushed and said she'd fry some eggs. She couldn't understand why Chenluo hadn't yet reined in Miling. At that moment, Chenluo turned to Mifan and asked, why isn't she eating? Starving herself was bad for her. Mifan replied that she was very angry and the consequences would be severe. Chenluo asked again with a smile, how much? Mifan replied that he wouldn't get away with just 1 dried bream. Chenluo asked again, what if it was 10? Mifan replied, 20, and they agreed. Mifan thought that was good. Since he is sincere, she forgives him. Let him hug her. Chenluo said, Mifan, he can hug her during the day. She's already so grown up that cats should sleep at night. After all, he's a family man and can't hug it while it's sleeping, and he shouldn't think he'll sleep with Millie. When everyone gathered at the table, he announced that he was very happy today, so he wouldn't have much. Food was served. Millie sat next to him, embarrassed. At that moment, everyone rejoiced and shouted, thank you, Captain. After some time, smoke appeared in their room, and the guys passing by were surprised. Can they smell it? It was so fragrant. Does it resemble stewed pork? Hui turned to her friend and said that it smelled so delicious, and she wanted some too. He replied that they first needed to resolve the water issue, and so she should follow him. When they arrived, Chenluo immediately turned to them. They apologized for disturbing him and asked if they had clean water. He could exchange it for food. The protagonist replied that if he exchanged it, of course he did. They pulled out 2 bottles of mineral water for them with the help of Shu Yun, and the guys thanked them for it. After what happened, the guy tried to take Hui away, who asked if they were all in the same squad and if their squad was still accepting people. Chenluo repeated, what? They want to join? Hui immediately answered yes, and Chenluo replied that if they had enough strength, fine. They could kill 10 zombies outside, and they could use weapons, but not cars and so on. They should get the crystals from their brains and come to him. The guys realized they had a chance, and answered okay, then they left. Chenluo realized that this guy seemed concerned about his family. It was easier to trust someone like that than someone who was alone. These two didn't seem like slackers, but I hope they don't disappoint him. Hui turned to the guy and said that it seemed the existence of crystals wasn't some kind of secret, and she thought he only knew about them. He replied that there were plenty of smart people, and besides, he was able to let so many people eat meat. It really wasn't that simple. He told him to kill 10 zombies, and they'd kill 12 and prove themselves. She replied, okay. An hour later, they returned, and Chenluo said he had no problem with courage. Welcome to his squad. What were their powers, and when did they awaken? The guy replied that his name was Ming, and he awakened on the 3rd day, and his sister, Hui, awakened on the 2nd. His physical strength had increased significantly, making him a soldier, while his sister was a sorceress. He asked again what he meant. She demonstrated her magical abilities, and Chenluo was delighted that it was dark magic. When she leveled up, whether she was researching curses, calling necromancy, or attack, it would be a great help to him and his team. He exclaimed that Mayu should try to please cook them some stewed pork and potatoes, because today was a great joy, which everyone deserved. The guys thanked their captain. When evening came, Chenluo was thinking, everything is clear. Millie should have finished absorbing today's share of crystals. He turned to Mifan and said that he would go to sleep with her tonight. He still had important business. Mifan thought that honestly, since he was busy with his important business, he should calm down. Chenluo replied, okay, that won't do, then he will go himself. Mifan asked again, he really is strange. Why does he suddenly not want to tonight? When Chenluo came to Millie's room and said that he came and that they would spend the evening together tonight, Millie suddenly covered herself with a blanket and told him not to try. She's still hurt. He replied, okay, there will still be many chances and he will try to be patient. He hugged her from behind, then suggested that maybe she try to heal herself with magic. She exclaimed in embarrassment. The next day, the goal was to gather resources in the south. In the Yulin region, there are a lot of zombies there, so she needs to be more careful. Chenluo said without panic, they should first clear the area with a truck of zombies that would be swarming behind them, and then block the road. They should also attack with elemental magic and let the others defend from the front. Feng must control the zombie numbers. Suddenly, he ran out of the bus and shouted for the zombies to watch him. Shuyun exclaimed, listen to her command, aiming at the fire. At that moment, everyone began attacking the monsters at once, and Chenluo smiled, realizing that this was not bad. The mage's accuracy had greatly improved compared to the first day. He told them to throw the cars directly onto the road and to take their time, to slow down. They shouted that everything was clear, and Chenluo picked up Mifan, who told him not to try too hard. It still hurt. He exclaimed in surprise, and Mifan looked him in the eye, after which he asked, where did she learn to do that? Mifan replied that he had let her watch, but hadn't told her not to eavesdrop. Last night, she ran to Millie's roof and almost fell there, scared to death. He replied, it's Mifan, and he knows so much. They need to be careful. He'll kill Mifan too, for the sake of keeping it a secret. Half an hour later, They were still in the area, and Chen Luo announced that everyone was taking a weapon and preparing to kill zombies when they emerged. Mealy approached him and said there were many good restaurants here. Maybe there was something useful there? He suggested that they split into 4 groups to check out the restaurants, and under no circumstances, split up. Any items they found were to be taken directly to the truck. The girls set to work, and one of them asked the captain to act quickly. There was a still untouched supermarket there. Mealing stared, wondering what kind of thing could possibly be in a supermarket that size. Shiyu noticed something odd and wondered, what is she doing so strange? Mealing took the contraceptives, and Shuyun became embarrassed and asked if she would use them with Chen Luo. Did they have some kind of relationship? Mealing turned around and shouted, "Don't misunderstand me." But Shuyun pretended nothing had happened and said she needed help and was leaving. Mealing shook with embarrassment and thought, this is for Millie, that damn Chen Luo. Chen Luo felt something unpleasant and realized someone was watching him. He turned around abruptly and saw, indeed, many survivors. The woman turned to him and said that just looking at him, she immediately realized he was a kind person. She hadn't eaten watermelon for so many days, and the heat was unbearable. He'll bring one to his aunt, right? Other people also started asking him to please bring water. If there is meat, then let them bring duck legs and sauce from the supermarket and a couple of smoked ones, and quickly. Chen Luo realized that they were really impudent and looked up in surprise. He told them that his legs hurt, so he wouldn't bring them anything. They immediately started to get indignant, talking about respect for their elders, and in fact, he was stealing their resources. They realized that they too could crush zombies with a truck, and so they came out to him with pitchforks and other weapons to protect their resources. The old people became indignant that he was robbing them. The youth had become so ignorant. How did his parents raise him? Chen Luo called them a bunch of insolent old men and asked if this was their store. The man confirmed it. His brother opened the store. He died, so the building became his. Meanwhile, 2 old men examined the truck and said that they would confiscate it, and that they should go back where they came from. They had already started chatting about where they would park the truck, and MC angrily told them not to pick a fight and get out of here. The old man exclaimed, "What? Is he trying to hit him? He doesn't mind. Let him hit him, then he'll fall down dead. He can do that, can't he?" Chen Luo pointed out that he was so old, but he had never heard such a request from anyone before, after which he slapped him in the face and told him not to thank him. The old man fell unconscious to the floor. The others crowded around him and asked him to wake up. Why are they moving? One of them told the others to calm down. He used to scam people out of money by pretending to be hit. He's just an old trickster. The woman noticed that he was pretending so realistically, and MC smiled faintly and thought, they are so old, but they have already forgotten how to use their eyes? They don't see that half of his face is distorted? He snapped his fingers, called his friends, and asked, don't they see that their resources were stolen? How can they have such respect from their elders? The old men finally realized their friend was truly dead and even used magic to threaten to kill them, but they quickly dealt with them. Several guys arrived and drove the old men away with magic, and MC smiled at one of them, thinking he knew him. In his past life, when he was weak, they used to go everywhere together. His name was Chen Guang. He approached him and said with a smile that they had been following them for several days. Out of respect for his neighbors, he didn't quarrel with them, but he never thought they would die at his hand. Chen Luo asked, so he wanted revenge? The guy called him a friend and said, they came here to make friends with everyone, and secondly, they wanted to ask for help. They introduced themselves to each other, and he explained that their neighborhood was rich in resources, and most of them hadn't been collected. But 2 days ago, a mutant appeared, a zombie dog. It runs like lightning, and is also smart. This dog attacked when there were few of them, and when there were many, it hid. It was really hard to deal with. It mauled one of their comrades. They found its lair, but they were short-handed. As he sees, he has quite a few comrades, so he wants to ask him for help. MC inquired about the reward, and he replied that he could give him 150 kilograms of rice and 5 containers of water. He thought about it, then Mifan came up to him and told him not to worry. These people had no malicious intent. Chen Luo picked her up and told Guang to show the way. He agreed to help them. He told his men to continue carrying things and called Warlock, and Guang asked in surprise, do you want to go there alone? He answered that he would not go alone, but with the dog. Guang was shocked. Times were turbulent, and he'd gotten himself 2 pets, and he'd even brought girls with him. Life was a fairy tale. Millie volunteered to go with him, and he handed her the cat, asking her to simply wait for his return. Guang was already crying with envy. How was he so lucky? He had a cat, a dog, a girlfriend, and probably even ate 3 times a day. Everything was perfect. After that, he led him to the zombie dog and said that it usually stayed in the garden, and there was no way to get past this one. Does he have any ideas on how to counter the zombies? MC glanced at Warlock with a smile, noting that he could handle this perfectly, and Guang asked in surprise, so he's suggesting sending a dog there? Does he want to get revenge on his pet? You can't send him there. The risk is too great. Chen Luo told him not to worry. Everything will be fine, and when Guang saw the dog nod, he thought he must be very smart. They entered the building. Guang walked ahead and led them to the desired floor, where the door to one of the apartments was broken and stained with blood. They opened the door, and inside was indeed a zombie dog, and when he gave the command to Warlock, he rushed to attack. He began jumping from side to side, avoiding the enemy's blows, and Guang was surprised by his speed. At one point, Warlock got closer to his opponent, turned around and hit the dog with an electric tail, MC didn't even know he had learned such a move. The blow sent the dog flying, hitting his back against the wall, and Warlock barked, rejoicing in victory. After that, Chenluo smiled sweetly and told Guang that their cooperation was over. It was time for him to give them the promised reward. He asked in surprise, "So the problem is already solved?" Warlock barked proudly. He's actually a reliable dog, after which they returned to the truck. While the guys were loading rice, Guang suggested that Chenluo form an alliance with them, because the more people, the more strength. He doesn't want to brag, but each of them killed at least 10 zombies, and their food and water supplies were enough to last another 6 months. But MC didn't need an alliance, he just wanted to subjugate them, and so he replied that his words didn't impress him at all. If he wanted, he could kill them all alone. So why should he form an alliance with them? The strong have no reason to cooperate with the weak. Only the weak want the help of the strong. Of course, they can form an alliance, but he will be the one in charge. At that very moment, the guy ran up to Guang and told him disturbing news. The zombies had wounded Zhanglan, and the wounds were very serious. The zombies that attacked them were shooting fireballs at them, but as soon as they approached, they ran away. Guang immediately went to deal with the matter, and MC called Millie to him. They approached the wounded guy, and Guang asked him to save him, and then he left this matter to Millie. She used a healing technique on him. All his wounds immediately healed and he stood up, exclaiming that it was simply amazing. They thanked them for their help, and Chenluo finally advised Guang to think carefully about his offer, after which he left with Millie. He thought that she had such a powerful healing technique, so an alliance with him attracted him even more. He turned to his brothers and told them that he had just asked Chenluo to form an alliance with them. He said that it was possible, but in this case they should obey him. Let them just listen to him, although he does not want to admit it, but they are really more capable than them. The guys agreed to this, because by joining him, at least they cannot worry about injuries. They will have a healer, so they have nothing to fear. And if there are also a lot of girls there, then they are only happy, and they do not care at all who they obey. Since everyone was in agreement, Guang happily headed to Chenluo and informed him that they all agreed to his terms. MC welcomed them with open arms, but he had 2 conditions: obey his orders and kill zombies. If they didn't, he wouldn't recognize them as members of the alliance. And since they had formed an alliance, they could now live together. Anyone mind having dinner at his place today? Guang was very happy and agreed to this, and then turned to his guys and asked them to listen to Chenluo's instructions and help him. A new day arrived. Some bully was beating up a guy for living in a luxurious house, and he didn't, and his friend turned to their leader, Brother Wei, and noted with annoyance that this house was low on supplies. What should they do? He suggested they look further. There are many more houses here. Meanwhile, Lon noticed that they were heading towards them and told Yu that they wanted to go to Chenluo's house. What should they do? There were clearly more of them, and the outcome would be unfavorable. Should they pretend they didn't see them? Yu disagreed. They couldn't just hand Chenluo's things over, so he suggested he go out and tell them that everyone would be back any minute now. If they didn't listen, they would either fight back or run away. With electric batons, they had a slim chance. Lan agreed, and if they were lucky, Chenluo would still make it back in time. And then he noticed something. Chenluo's car appeared on the road, meaning they had nothing to fear now. He immediately noticed that there were a lot of cars near his house. It looked like a group of survivors had gathered there. But that wasn't all. Lan and Yu went out to drive away the hooligans. When he drove up to the house, the survivors were surprised that so many girls had arrived with him. MC glanced at their leader and realized that it was a small world. This is Chen Jing, the sly girl from his past life. Is she with Lu Wei now? The thugs knocked on the truck, asking what was inside. If it was something expensive, they would split the profits equally. Lu Wei hit him on the back of the head and asked, "Will people risk their lives, and he wants to take half of it? Is he crazy?" He glanced at the girls, noting their beauty, and apologized to them. He had no idea that this was their territory. They would leave immediately. He took his friends, and Chenluo watched him go. As far as he remembered, he had the power of poison. He couldn't be allowed to release the poisonous gas, otherwise he would stink like a skunk. The smell would make them sick for several days. Mifan meowed, warning him that this man was evil, but he already understood everything. Meanwhile, one of Lu Wei's friends asked, "Will it end like this?" This wasn't like him. He hit him on the back of the head, exclaiming that now they knew that they lived here, they weren't going anywhere. Why don't they wait for an opportunity and attack them secretly? They shouldn't make hasty decisions. Let them at least use their brains for once. The guy finally understood the meaning and looked at the leader with admiration. But when his head was covered in blue flames, he screamed in fear. Chenluo did it. He decided to attack them stealthily and told his guys to squash them. He is not naive, and he would not wait for him to start acting. He realized that he was a dangerous guy, so he decided to finish him off right away. Night fell. He returned to his room, lay down on the bed and thought, the day after tomorrow, some zombies will evolve to level 1. So he needs to transport Guang's supplies before that happens. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. He got up and thought, who is there? Only he. Milling and Millie live on the 3rd floor, but it was definitely not Milling. Could it be that Millie has started to show initiative? But to his surprise, Milling appeared at the threshold. She immediately shyly handed him a black bag, and when he saw the contents, he was very surprised. She looked up at him with displeasure and asked why he was staring at her like that. If it weren't for Millie, she would never have agreed to such a thing. She's still young, she needs to wait at least another 2 years, but if he's ready to become a father, then the responsibility is his alone. After that, she quickly ran away, and he grinned. She did him a small favor, so he immediately decided to take advantage of it and ran into Millie's room. In the morning, he gathered all the survivors and said that he hoped they all felt that the magic zombies were becoming more and more numerous, that they were evolving. People agreed with him. They all noticed this, and now they were worried about what they would do about it. Should they count on killing them in seconds? But that won't help them. Their numbers will increase. MC told them to just follow him. He won't let them die. And now he will tell them about some of the zombie characteristics that he managed to identify. Level 1 zombies that use magic, not like them, are capable of using superpowers and possess a certain degree of intelligence. It's best to fight them with 4 people, 2 mages and 2 fighters. But don't let them worry. Even though they're evolving, they're still inferior to humans. If they overwhelm them with numbers, just let them run. Now he'll teach them spell evasion techniques, and Miling and Yun will help him demonstrate. They both prepared themselves, then attacked him, and he began to quickly move from side to side, dodging their attacks, which surprised the people, given his talent. Chen Luo said that it was almost impossible to evade a spell after seeing it, but he could judge the trajectory of the spell they were about to cast from Miling and Yun's gestures, so he could start moving in advance to avoid the attack. If they understood the trajectory of the spell, they would have no trouble dealing with the level 1 zombies. Miling smiled and suggested he try again, then threw several fireballs at him, and he wondered if she was disobeying him. He dodged her attacks and said with a smirk that that was enough. But only when one of the projectiles hit him in the face did she finally calm down and, with a smirk, said that she had predicted his prediction. Millie healed his wounds, and he thought, this is as expected of the wielder of divine flames. She is worthy of using her talent. He turned to the people and told them not to worry. First-level zombies cannot predict attacks. If they meet someone who can do this, then they should just run. They will not be able to withstand absolutely everything. Now let them find a partner to practice this technique. After lunch, they will set off. Soon they set off. He told them to consider they have half a day left. Each person has 3 crystals. If the team fails the task, everyone will be punished and will be left without dinner upon returning. He thought that after the zombies evolve, the survivors will also start killing each other. At that very moment, Millie looked out the window and saw her classmates surrounded by some people, which made her worried. He asked if she got along with them. She told him that they communicate well. Her best friend was there, so they should help them. MC patted her on the head and said that even if they were strangers, they would help them. How could he not help her best friend? She sent Warlock on a rescue mission. Seeing a cute dog, everyone immediately wanted to devour it, but then Chen Luo's loyal friends pounced on them, and Warlock decided to take revenge on them for thinking of him as food and roasted them with lightning. The rescue was successful, and Millie immediately ran to her friend, Jingjing. She introduced her friend, noting that he was the one who sent people to help them, and she thanked him and also introduced them to her father, Zhang Dongcheng. They have nowhere to go. They have no home. Can they join the group? MC replied that they just need to follow their rules. Does her father know how to drive? Let him come pick them up. They will return to the base in the evening. Jingjing happily ran to her friend, asking her to tell Chen Luo that they will all spend the night together tonight and have a chat at the same time. Millie didn't know what to say to this, and MC realized they had an extra person. He firmly expressed his disagreement with this. Such things cannot be done without his word. He took Millie and left Yun to deal with her friend. Time passed. Jingjing ate with her father and said that the food was so delicious. Where's Millie? What did she have for lunch? Why didn't she come and eat with them? Yun told her to think of Chen Luo as their boss, and they as his subordinates. Not everyone is comfortable eating with their boss, so they usually eat separately. This is what confused her. They probably have more food, but they are friends. Why didn't she invite her to eat together? Meanwhile, in another room, Chen Luo called Millie to his office and expressed his suspicion of her friend. He told her to observe her for a while, but not to let her say anything about them. Everyone on the team must be useful. They will see what she can do, and even if she is incompetent but honest, he will find a place for her. She smiled and thanked him for this, after which he was informed over the radio about problems. 10 cars drove up to the gate. They have about 50 or 60 people each. MC assumed they were survivors, and he should gather everyone and head there. At this point, all the women in the dining room also received this message, and Yun said that since they had an emergency, they all needed to line up and go to the gate. They immediately stood up and stood at attention, and Jingjing became worried and asked if a fight was about to break out. Yun asked what her ability was, and she answered that she had strength. In that case, she ordered her to go forward, and then she indignantly exclaimed, "Why should she do that? She's only 18, but Li Hui is standing behind. Why?" Li Hui explained to her that it was because she had a supporting ability, and Chen Luo ordered her to stand behind. Yun grabbed Jingjing and told her to stop showing off and follow her, and she exclaimed indignantly that she and Millie are actually friends. They can't treat her like that. She was dragged outside by force. She was already starting to get hysterical, wanting to be let go. And then Millie came up to her and told her not to be afraid. She just needed to get through this. She shouldn't worry. She would be there, and if she was hurt, she would quickly heal her. Jingjing noticed that ice cream was stuck to the corner of her mouth. But where did she get such delicacies? Millie gently pushed her forward and decided to reassure her that Chen Luo would be there too, so they had nothing to be afraid of. Because of all this, Jingjing felt strange. Was there really something between her and Chen Luo? Did she decide to get him with her beauty? Seeing how Millie joyfully ran up to him, she clenched her teeth in rage and decided to forget about it. She didn't say a word about their friendship, nor about what connected them in the past. If she could do it, then she could too. Meanwhile, the survivors had gathered in a huge crowd, outraged that they weren't being allowed into such a large area, and Guang and his guys had been holding them back the whole time. Finally, MC arrived, and the survivor leader looked him over. He'd thought this team had a cool, serious leader, but it turned out it was just a kid. He grinned and asked, "Is he the one in charge here?" There were no supplies left around, and he wasn't joking. His people hadn't eaten or drunk in days. Maybe he could help them? He told him that he couldn't support them, but he could offer an exchange. He would exchange 1 zombie crystal for a bottle of water and half a kilo of rice. He didn't have many supplies left, but he was willing to exchange them so that everyone would stay alive. The man was surprised at his stupidity. He was telling him about the crystals so simply. He said that he had been wondering how many people would come to them, but it turned out there was just a group of girls, and beautiful ones at that. He turned to his people and conveyed his words to them. They should go kill zombies. Then he would give them food. What would they say to that? They were outraged by this proposal. They were actually terribly hungry. How could they kill zombies in such a state? Since he offered such an exchange, that meant he had enough supplies. Let him just share it with them. What's the problem? Chen Luo nervously clenched his teeth and thought, do these idiots think he can't beat them up? Jingjing suddenly declared, the most important thing is to keep the peace. They can give them something, and then they will just leave. Millie asked in surprise, what was she talking about? She responded by saying that there was no need to fight to the death when they could just give them food. What if she stood next to her? Would they hit her too? What should she do then? The man agreed with her. They didn't need much. Let them just give them 1,000 kilograms of rice, and if that wasn't enough, noodles would do too. They also needed water and other food. This girl was still young. She had a kind heart. They had no choice but to repay them in the future. But MC was very much against this. He immediately hit the girl for her willfulness and exclaimed, who did she think she was? She thought she had the right to speak? Her father immediately rushed to her and indignantly turned to Chen Luo, asking what he was doing. Had his daughter really said something wrong? There were too many of them. What would they gain from this fight? Wouldn't it be better to go house to house and collect supplies? Or is he one of those who sacrifices the lives of his subordinates? Millie approached her friend worriedly, and she dismissed her, calling her a hypocrite. She had secretly eaten delicious food with him without her, and now she was forced to stand in front of everyone and take a blow. How could she even call her a friend? MC reminded her that he had actually saved her. She was eating his food and drinking his water. How could she even spout such nonsense? Looking at her, he realized that there were people who weren't worth saving at all. After that, he returned to the leader of the survivors and invited him to continue their conversation. The man smirked and said that they had a lot of supplies, enough for several houses. Maybe they should just give them the food needed for just one house? Chen Luo turned his gaze to the guy leading the other group and asked his opinion on the matter. He smiled awkwardly and told him that they just came to look for a place to settle down and they still had supplies left. And as he saw, everything here was occupied, so they were leaving. They didn't want to get into a conflict with them at all. The man called him a pathetic coward, and when they left he asked, so he'll give them food? But MC decided to give him something else. He threw a blue flame at his head, which scared the people very much. And then he gave a signal to his subordinates, telling them to teach them a lesson, since they don't value their lives. They rushed to attack. Jingjing and her father were shocked. No wonder no one can match Chen Luo. He defeated them with such ease. After they were finished, MC ordered them to take the crystals from these people and bury their bodies under the mountain. Jingjing was still under the impression and realized that if she had kept her head down, everything would have been fine. What should she do now? She fell to her knees in front of Chen Luo and begged him for mercy, and he asked in confusion, what was she even talking about? After all, she was Millie's friend. He wouldn't raise a hand to her. But he couldn't leave her here either. This was where their paths parted. So let her go now before he changed his mind. Jingjing was scared. She called out to her friend, but she only apologized to her and said goodbye. Her dad helped her up, and she pulled herself together, saying that everything was fine. Millie knows how to charm guys. She can do it too. Then, when they beg them to stay, they will leave. Meanwhile, MC lightly kicked Warlock and nodded to him, saying that they shouldn't relax. She could be quite dangerous. Warlock immediately understood his intentions and went to keep an eye on the two. Time passed. Guang ran up to Chen Luo and informed him. The guy who just left is back again. He said that he has important business. He doesn't know what exactly the matter is, but he looks quite calm and confident, so he doesn't think he'll talk nonsense. MC decided to check everything and told Muling to take her little sister and go home. and he'll check what he wants from him. He approached the guy, who introduced himself as Lang Chen, and asked if they were still accepting people. He clarified, so this was the urgent matter he was talking about. He excitedly told him that it wasn't so, he had something else. He showed him a level 6 crystal. Chen Luo was immediately interested in it and asked how he got this thing. He told him that he found it in the body of a monster. It was more than 10 meters tall. Let him consider it a welcome gift. Now can he join them? MC really liked his approach to business and asked Guang to tell him about their rules. The guy greeted the new member with a smile and said that their team rules were quite simple. Obey the commander in everything, and do not run away from the battlefield. At this time, Chen Luo looked at the crystal and thought, with this treasure, he can reach level 5 in about 3 days. According to previous calculations, it should take half a month, so this is quite good. He called out to Guang and told him to continue watching this entrance. If people come again, let him remember to ask if there are people with promising or supporting abilities on their team. Those who wish to join can be accepted directly, or he can just take them. He went to the house. Warlock caught up with him and asked, how did he manage to do it so quickly? He proudly answered him that he was actually an expert in this matter. Time passed, he gathered the people and told all the team members who had reached level 2, except for those who were on duty last night, to continue going on sorties and killing zombies. And the people on Lang Chen's team will go through this today too. Since they only arrived yesterday, there's no requirement for them to have as many crystals as they need today. Let them just follow the others and learn to fight. He ordered Yun to lead the team, which surprised the guy slightly. Time passed, and they all followed her. Lang Chen told Guang that a skilled person usually hides their abilities. He'd actually thought he'd lead them. Will this beautiful girl really be able to handle it? She told him that he was actually just a junior fighter. That girl had been with their boss for a long time and had reached level 2. Yun's leadership talent was highly valued by the boss. She seemed to be at level 3. The guy scratched his head in confusion and asked, what about the other level 2 girls? It turns out they are very strong. They approached the zombies' habitat. If they killed a lot, they would get the same amount of crystals. Yun stopped everyone and said that they would now work in groups of 4. They were to search for crystals. As soon as they found them, they were to immediately transport them by truck. The most important thing was to observe safety regulations and stay in touch. She turned to Feng and ordered him to stay at the settlement gate and use the radio if anything happened. An hour passed. Feng saw a bunch of cars approaching the settlement and realized that things were bad. He immediately reported this to the others over the radio. Yun dropped everything and ordered everyone to gather together. They would sort out the situation and successfully collect supplies. She contacted Yang Li and ordered them to quickly get out of the car. Someone was driving up to them. They didn't know their intentions, so it was best for them to gather together now. Yang Li worriedly asked what they should do with the supplies they had collected. She exclaimed that they had a general meeting. Now was not the time to worry about supplies. First, they needed to get out of there. Then, they would sort everything out. Just as Yang Li and her team were about to leave, cars drove up to them, from which a bunch of guys got out, and they grinned and said that they hadn't seen such beautiful and pure girls in a long time. Yang Li stood up for her team. The guys stretched out their dirty hands to her and she hit them, exclaiming, what are they doing? They answered that they were doing what she liked. It was the end of the world. They no longer needed to hold back or resort to subterfuge. But Yang Li could stand up for herself. She kicked him in the groin with all her might, and his friend exclaimed, how dares she hurt his brother? He ordered his men to kill the 2 guys first, and then they would deal with the girls. They surrounded them from all sides. They had weapons in their hands, and they had nothing. Yang Li ordered her ill-wishers to leave, and then the guy hit her on the head with a baton so that she would not resist, and wished her death. She fell unconscious and Yuan called out to him, asking what he was doing. He turned to the car he was sitting in and answered with a smile that everything was fine. Those girls wanted to beat him up, but now he would teach them a lesson. Yuan mentally noted that Heiji's methods were quite brutal, but he was strong, so they shouldn't push him. He asked him not to overdo it so that they wouldn't have problems in the future, and the guys smiled, saying that they would just teach them a little lesson. Suddenly, someone shouted, telling them to stop this hooliganism. An arrow flew into the head of Heiji's friend, and Yun came to the rescue. She aimed at him and ordered him to let them go, and then Yuan got out of the car and stood up for them, asking, she killed his man, and now she wants them to let them go? He used his ability, pushing a stone wall in front of him, and she immediately fired, but her attack was blocked. Yuan realized that he couldn't relax. Even a woman had some abilities, and Yun was nervous at this point. She knew it wouldn't be easy, so she had to act carefully. She ordered him to retrieve their people, and he did. The wounded Yang Li was handed over to their team. Yun looked at the poor girl and was horrified. She was dead. She burst into tears and hugged her body tightly, blaming herself for everything. She hadn't performed her duties as a commander well, and this is what it had come to. Heiji laughed at her grief, and Yun told her team to leave, but MC wouldn't let this go so easily. He would definitely take revenge on them. They were about to climb into the truck, but Heiji said that Yuan wanted to keep it, and then Yun, furious, ordered them to leave the truck and leave. After that, Heiji approached Yuan and asked why they didn't keep the girls for themselves. They were beautiful. He immediately slapped him in the face, exclaiming that he should understand that this was a serious matter, she was a difficult opponent. He asked in confusion, why should they be afraid of her? There were clearly more of them, so this definitely wouldn't end well for her. Yuan called him too frivolous and thought they should find their nearest base, guess the timing, and strike back. Time passed. Yun came to Chenluo with a report. Yang Li died not at the hands of zombies, but at the hands of survivors. She was very sorry. She was a bad commander. She couldn't keep track of everything. MC sighed heavily. He didn't blame her. On the contrary, she did everything right. It would have been irrational to start a fight. They were all his people. If they died at the hands of zombies, then he could do nothing about it. But he will not tolerate bullying from others. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. That's why he called all his men and went to take revenge on them. Soon, Yuan and his group noticed them approaching. He was even surprised that they decided to take revenge on them so quickly. Looking at their numbers, he ordered his friend to go and call the others. They should be ready for a fight. After that, the two gangs clashed. Yun showed Chenluo their offender, and Yuan even got a little nervous. He wondered if this was the girl who recently reached level 3. Was she the one who complained to that guy? MC asked, so it was they who treated his people so cruelly? And how did they have the courage to do it? He saw no reason to let them go. Yuan mentally noted that he looked self-confident. Perhaps he shouldn't fight him. He admitted that they were to blame. Maybe they would somehow compensate for everything with a ton of rice? How does that deal sound to him? He asked displeasedly. So he wants to compensate for killing a man with rice? Then he'll give him 100 tons of rice in exchange for their lives. How could he do that? The guy remained silent and realized he was crazy. But there had to be a reason, and most likely there was. If he didn't explain himself to him, everything would end badly. Right now, supplies and materials were everything. He couldn't risk all of their capital. He told him that only Heiji was to blame for this. Everyone else shouldn't be held responsible for his mistakes. They'd give him to them, let them do with him whatever they wanted. The guys immediately grabbed Heiji, and he shouted indignantly that he'd been loyal to him. Why was he doing this to him? He said that the girl was the one who started the fight. Yuan felt sorry for handing him over to the mercy of those who wanted to resolve this issue, and so he swore he would definitely take revenge on Chenluo. Heiji realized he wouldn't get an answer from his boss, so he turned to Chenluo, crying and screaming that he didn't know who she was, that he wasn't the only one who had beaten her, that others had done it too. MC asked Yuan to elaborate, to which Yuan replied that he could sacrifice those two for the greater good. Chenluo ordered his men to beat those idiots to death, but they shouldn't get their hands dirty. If anyone has smelly socks, let them use them. After that, the men took off their shoes and started beating them. And when their faces were already disfigured with bumps and bruises, MC stopped them and ordered Wang Ling to treat them, as there were still many people who wanted to beat them. As soon as the treatment was finished, Yun approached them and began beating them with a stick studded with nails. Everyone else was shocked by such brutality. Yuan hadn't even thought they were so crazy. In the end, these three guys didn't have enough stamina. Yun beat them to death. Looking at them, Yuan told Chenluo that all those responsible were now dead. He had already killed his man before, so they were even. He said with a smirk that they were all cheap. The lives of these idiots were not worth as much as the lives of his people. This was not enough. Yuan became nervous and asked him to say what he wanted, and he asked in response, why did he need to explain anything to him? Yuan did not like all this. He exclaimed that he had never met such crazy people. He thinks he could scare him so much. He killed countless zombies, and besides, he has more people than him. He went too far. He remained silent and thought, if you want to suppress your subordinates, you must rely not only on resources, but also on strength. It had been a long time since he had taken any action, and the new people had never seen him engage in a real fight, so he decided to show them right now. He ordered his men to retreat, which confused Yuan, who decided that he wanted to be a hero, but he would simply crush him. MC smiled, because he had a chance to show what he was capable of, and then he took up his weapon and rushed into battle. Seeing this, he became excited. He raised a stone wall in front of himself, but he still wouldn't have been able to stop him. Chenluo delivered his blow, and it was fatal. Millie put buffs on Chenluo, and he laughed, thinking that she really makes him stronger. Good thing he has a wife like that. After that, he turned to the others and asked, are they ready to die? The people panicked and ran. He followed them and killed them all, and Guang and Leng Chen were amazed at his immense strength. Millie was also surprised, but at the same time she was worried, because the difference in their strength was growing wider and wider, and so she suggested that they go together. They didn't want to be left looking like fools. As soon as the fight was over, Guang excitedly ran up to Chenluo and said that he was so cool. He would never regret following him. He boasted to him, calling it just a warm-up, and said that he was also very sorry about Yang Li's death. But such is the world, and danger can arise at any moment. The main purpose of their sortie was not to collect crystals, but to gain experience and participate in new battles. Since the only person who can best protect them is themselves, they must increase their strength as soon as possible. Of course, since they were with him, no matter who bullied them, that person would definitely pay for it. He suggested that they clean up the place and gather supplies. It was almost noon, so they would go back and ask the girls to cook them lunch. While Warlock was resting, hungry guys, as always, set their sights on him. They cautiously peeked around the corner, and one of them said, they say black dog meat is the most delicious. His friend was glad that they found something to eat for dinner, and when he was about to go after the dog, his friend stopped him and said that they hadn't eaten for over a day, and the dog runs very fast. What if the dog gets scared and runs away when they approach? They need to find something to bait the puppy. They say dogs can't change their habit of eating excrement, so he had to hold back to keep everything fresh. This dog must be dying of hunger too. Do you think this dog will take the bait? His friend called his idea simply excellent, and when they were already on their way to Warlock, he mentally told them that he didn't mean to harm them, but they asked for it themselves, deciding to slip him this thing. They can beat a dog, but they can't insult it. He released his lightning bolts, and the guys were shocked that this dog had superpowers, so they ran, but Warlock's fury still caught up with them. MC came to check out what was going on and asked what they had done. Were they some kind of bandits? He told him they wanted to feed him something nasty and left, stomping his paws furiously. Chenluo decided not to dwell on this and told everyone to disperse and rest. They would have to train after lunch. Looking at them, he thought, he needs to find more people. If they encounter a gang of 100 people, this number of people will not be enough. Besides, he can imagine how many subordinates he will have left in 2 or 3 months. He has plenty of supplies, so he can focus on gathering a team and killing zombies. He needs to write a recruitment ad. Soon the ad was ready, and it was quite voluminous. To cope with the changing world, they are recruiting like-minded friends to create a base and survive together. Zombies have crystals in their foreheads that allow survivors to advance to higher levels, and the more powerful the zombie, the better the quality of the crystals. Absorbing crystals can enhance supernatural abilities and increase levels. This base has several third-level superpowers, and they are very powerful. Conditions. First, 3 meals a day, sometimes with meat. Second, the living conditions are excellent. You are allowed to move in with your luggage, and basic necessities and clothing are provided. Third, this base has a generator that can meet simple daily needs. Fourth, there are enough transistors to meet the needs of team members on field trips. Requirements. First, obey orders. Second, be brave enough to fight zombies and reach level 3. Third, those with auxiliary abilities and those with special abilities can enter without any requirements or have reduced requirements. Fourth, if family members meet the requirements, they can join, even if they are level 1. Note, strict discipline is in place in the camp, and violating moral standards is unacceptable. Upon seeing such an announcement, everyone, of course, immediately became interested and began to discuss everything. One of them turned to Brother Chow and asked how he liked these conditions. He replied that if everything was true as they said, they should join, but he and Liu Qi were level 2, and the 3 of them did not meet the requirements. Should they go out and ask that guy about everything? Liu Qi did this, and Guang immediately said that those guys were all blood relatives. However, if a level 1 person could pay 3 level 1 crystals, they could also join the team. Liu Qi introduced himself to him. He was a level 2 priest who could heal and increase his strength. Would he be able to benefit the team? Guang mentally noted that he was a strange guy, but interesting, and said that he could ask the boss about it, but after they joined, they would need to follow the team to kill zombies and collect crystals every day. The guy assured him that this would be no problem, after which Guang brought them to his boss and introduced them to him. Wang Chao was a friend of Liu Qi, a level 2 priest, and MC, upon hearing the healer's name, realized that he had heard this name somewhere before. Even though he was a priest, he knew a little about him. Mi Fan, as usual, told him whether they were normal people or not, and Chenluo kindly invited them to the team and asked Guang to help them settle in. After such a hard day, MC returned to his home, stretched, and said that he didn't even expect to easily recruit people, especially with healing abilities. Level 2 people came to his door themselves. He was very lucky. He hoped that they could really integrate here. He took out the crystal and looked at it with a smile, thinking, if nothing happens, tonight he will be able to reach level 5, after which the level 1 zombies simply won't be able to harm him, even considering their numbers. He absorbed the crystal, successfully reached level 5, and was very happy about it. He increased his strength to level 5 in just a month. However, if he doesn't have the opportunity to increase his level further, he will be stuck at 5 for a long time. He turned to the cat and petted her, saying that people often celebrate something to relax, so he will spend time with Millie. Mifan was annoyed that she was left as a guard cat again and left. After a while, he gathered everyone and told them the news. There would be an event today, and they were also participating. The target was the vegetable market on Shinfu Street. There were some risks, so they had to be careful. He turned to Guang and asked him to gather his people and, together with Warlock, guard their house. Once everyone was ready, they set off and arrived at the market half an hour later. He informed everyone over the radio that the farmer's market they were going to had a small cold storage warehouse, a wholesale market, a grain and oil store, as well as agricultural products, and so on. There were a lot of people here every day, which meant there were a lot of zombies too. When the zombie density was relatively high, more than a dozen of them would often gather together to attack. If spells were used together, it would be difficult to coordinate them through prediction and positioning, so the 4-person team method was impossible. In this case, they needed to learn how to lure out and spread this crowd of zombies as wide as possible. He ordered Feng to go and attract the zombies, letting them come out one by one. Mealy volunteered to support him, and when the zombies rushed towards the guy, he shouted with a smile, "The show is starting." Chen Luo asked everyone else to pay attention to him. The range of low-level zombies isn't very long. You just need to keep them at a distance of 20 meters, then they will reach Feng. He successfully gathered the zombies into a group. then moved to the side, and everyone else began to bombard the crowd with their abilities, easily killing them. MC said that if in the future they encounter zombies with a numerical advantage, let them use this technique, but if there are too many and they die, then don't blame him. They need to deploy a few level 2 people to restore order here. An hour passed, they destroyed 100 zombies near the vegetable market, and he volunteered to deal with the rest personally. He walked around and looked around. In his previous life, he heard someone say that at this time there was a ground-type mutant zombie in the market, and its strength was around level 4 or 5, and he doesn't know where he's hiding. While he was walking through the market, a zombie in a straw hat noticed him, and he felt like something was approaching. The zombie used its abilities, and MC saw rocks flying at him, and he realized it was the same mutant zombie. He jumped to the side, dodging its attack, and then jumped out of the portal right in front of the mutant and struck, then grabbed its head to pull out the crystal. At this time, people were transferring supplies to the car. Chen Luo, who provoked a huge crowd of zombies, ran straight towards them and told them not to stand there, but to follow him, and let them prepare to use spells on the turn around, hit, and run on. They followed his advice, thus successfully escaping from the zombies and clearing some part of the market to safely rest. One of them caught his breath and said that they did it. There must be more than 200 zombies there, right? The others were even surprised that they dealt with them so quickly. And MC said that it looks like they will need to devote more time to this kind of training. No matter how many zombies attack them, they will not be able to kill them all. They need to evolve along with the pace of zombie evolution. He mentally noted that most of them do not have time to catch up with the zombies' progress, and ordered them to take everything they can carry. Time passed. Chen Luo walked around the cold workshop and thought, there was no electricity here for a long time, so all the meat was rotten, but it's okay, they will still transfer their supplies here. He thinks the food that the others will find should be enough. 2 hours passed. A couple of cars drove up to the market. A guy named Zhonglong noticed a whole crowd, got out of the car and, blocking Chen Luo's path, asked him to wait, and he sternly ordered him to get out of the way. The guy got nervous and realized he was the one they shouldn't mess with. At that moment, a guy on a motorcycle pulled up to them, and MC immediately recognized him. It was Xia Haoran, who would become known as the Iron Fist. He approached the driver and said, I heard he caught a live chicken. Can he give it to him? His mother will be passing away soon, so she wanted to have a bowl of chicken soup for her last meal. Let him just help him out, and then he could use it however he wanted. Long apologized to him too, saying he couldn't help him in any way. Then the other guys started criticizing Haoran, asking, does he want Zhonglong to provide for him for the rest of his life? This guy has no honor at all, and he looks like Haoran, the martial arts champion. He shocked him with a taser, but nothing happened. Chen Luo smiled and realized he'd be a fool to pass up such a deal. He called out to the guy and said that he actually has chickens and a cook here. He can satisfy his request, but in exchange he must sell him his life. Haoran would have been perfectly willing to trade his life for a bowl of soup, just so his mother could get enough to eat before she died. Chen Luo then kicked Meili out of the car and told her to get into another car with the others, and he would go with him. He told Haoran to take him to his mother, and they would take the motorcycle. After a while, they reached home. Haoran took his mother down to the car and sat her down, telling her she had late-stage cancer. MC expressed his condolences and thought it was a shame Meili wasn't yet able to treat such serious illnesses. He promised to fulfill his request, and when they returned home, he asked Yoon to give his mother a separate room and take good care of her. And he asked Haoran to wait while he asked someone to make chicken soup. He turned to Ma Yu with this request and asked her to try especially hard this time. And then she asked with displeasure, hadn't she tried hard enough before? He awkwardly looked away and explained to her. He meant that today she needed to prepare everything especially carefully and quickly. She said that she needed at least 3 hours to prepare a delicious chicken soup, and he suggested that she prepare a few more dishes, 4 meat and 4 vegetable ones. He touched his chin thoughtfully. Most likely, his mother would want to eat something else. He needed to win people's trust, so he should prepare in advance. Soon the food was ready. Haoran's mother burst into tears when she saw a pile of expensive dishes, and he asked her not to worry so much. Everything was fine. Let her eat while it was hot. She suddenly grabbed his sleeve and said that she saw that he was very good. Let him take care of her son. He copes with everything better than her and can give him what he wants. But at the same time, he cherishes her so much. He would never let anyone down. Haoran also burst into tears and asked her not to worry so much, and Chen Luo wished them both bon appetit and left them. Some time passed. MC stood outside and looked at the starry sky. Haoran approached him, looking very upset. He thanked him for his help. His mother passed away peacefully. It's good that she won't have to suffer anymore. He patted him on the shoulder, condoling with his loss, and promised him that he would try his best. And Chen Luo believed him. Given his abilities, he would sooner or later join them. The number of people is growing. He needs to learn how to manage them properly. He needs to establish a set of rules of reward and punishment, as well as establish a hierarchy to mobilize everyone's enthusiasm. He will simply use the hierarchical system from his past life. The job levels are divided into leader, deputy leader, elder, elite, ordinary, and newbie. Only he can grant special, dedicated positions, such as Meili and Daju. Currently, those who have reached level 3 can be called elites. Everyone else is ordinary. In the future, New participants can only start as newcomers and will be automatically promoted to ordinary after half a month or in the event of excellent performance. They will then be able to exchange their personal points for supplies at the base. Points will be awarded based on personal achievements, and additional contributions will be calculated separately. Then, each position will depend only on points, not level. The next morning, he gathered the people to announce this. Any elite member of the group with leadership abilities can become a captain and lead a small team. Due to the current situation, Yun leads the women's team and Yu and Guang act as temporary captains and lead the men's teams, respectively. From now on, they will adhere to this hierarchy. Let them work hard and everything will be fine. He wished everyone good luck, and the people were very happy. Now they had motivation to kill zombies. They could get points and food for them. Meanwhile, a car drove past the base. A man named Zhao Hai called out to the guy and asked him to tell him what happened here, as he hadn't seen a single zombie in the area. He told him that they had all been killed, and that there was a large survivor base on the territory of the villa ahead, where cool people lived. They ate meat every day and generally lived well. They not only killed all the zombies but also collected all the nearby supplies. Hearing about meat, the man immediately became interested and turned to his driver, Jin Tao, suggesting that he ask them to join him. They were quite strong, and if they befriended them, it would be easier for them to survive. The guy smiled and remarked that this sounded good. Maybe they would even invite them to eat meat. He hadn't eaten anything like that in so long. In that case, the man told him to drive to the villas, and the guy remembered that before the end of the world, the main shareholder of Chen Group, a rich man named Chen Luo, asked them for 300 million. The mortgaged villa is located on a summer cottage right in front of the house. The man said that they are now at the end of the world. What's the point of money? He answered him that he thought that same man died a long time ago. Meanwhile, Lang Chen noticed a bunch of approaching cars and excitedly reported this to the boss, asking for his support. MC himself came to meet the guests. Zhao Hai was surprised, mentally noting that he looked very much like Chen Luo, and he also recognized him, and this startled him. These are creditors from his past life. What's going on? They both awkwardly greeted each other, and the man asked, "Is he responsible for everything here?" He confirmed this and immediately began by saying that he owed him 300 million, and the principal and interest amounted to 330 million. The repayment period expired many days ago. Due to special circumstances, he may not return the interest, but now let him give him the money. MC chuckled and wondered why he thought he was going to return the money to him now. He smiled and said that he didn't know, but he never relies on other people's money. In fact, he had already returned everything to his card number. He had already received everything, hadn't he? It's a pity there was no connection now, so he could show him the records of the money transfer to the account. He couldn't accuse him of defaulting on his debt. Zhao Hai was confused. He didn't even think about what he would say. Then one of his subordinates exclaimed, "What kind of nonsense is this?" There was no way he could return such a large sum of money to him. Chen Luo said that then they needed to go to the bank and get proof that they had transferred the money, and he thought that the man wasn't going to return anything to him. Why should he return money that he borrowed before the apocalypse? He told the man that after all, he had once helped him. He's a man who knows how to repay kindness, so as a thank you, he'll give him a ton of rice. Zhao Hai smirked and said he misunderstood. He won't bother him too much, so let him give them some meat. The world is different, and the value of meat is also different. Half a kilo costs 10,000 yuan. 100 million is 10,000 kilograms of meat, 5 tons. If he lends him 300 million and returns 15 tons of meat, the debt will be repaid. Jin Tao said he has a share. He also wants 15 tons, which isn't too much. If he doesn't have meat, he can pay with the woman next to him. MC's face darkened, and he asked, "What if he has meat but he'll give it to him?" At that moment, Zhao Hai realized that Chen Luo was strong enough and wasn't afraid of his cruelty. That's right, he couldn't have cleared out so many zombies here alone. That must be his strength, and he can't act rashly. He smiled awkwardly and said that in that case he didn't need anything. He completely forgot that his money had been deposited into his account. His friend indignantly called him a fool, and he said that everything was fine, but Chen Luo kept his promise. Happy with the resolution of the situation, MC asked him to take his men and leave, after which, Zhao Hai ordered everyone to leave and thought that Jin Tao had brought up the topic of the woman next to him, and that was It just so happened that he also wanted to take a closer look at Chen Luo's methods and strength. Jin Tao was generally unhappy with this outcome, calling the man blind. There are only a couple of people here. They would have dealt with them easily. Where did he go? He was about to start a fight, but MC threatened him with violence and gave him 10 seconds to leave. Jin Tao realized he was completely alone. The others had already left with the boss, unwilling to interfere, but he wasn't about to give in so easily and use his power. Chen Luo was even surprised. He had dark summoning power, but he was no match for him. A horde of skeletons appeared behind him, and he immediately began bragging about them, saying that anyone killed by them would immediately go to hell, where their souls would be devoured, and they would no longer be able to reincarnate. Since MC specialized in healing, he couldn't do anything against him, and asked who he was trying to scare. He turned to his men and said, "This time, they will get 5 points for killing the enemy." He must be captured alive, and whoever does so will get 100 points. Warlock immediately rushed toward him and began barking. Then he turned to Mifan and asked what he wanted to tell him. She conveyed his words to him. He had been keeping an eye on the leader's position for a long time. Dogs should also have points. If not, he would sue him for dog discrimination and neglect. He chuckled and thought, what does he even want from him? What's the point of asking for points? He told him that if that's what he wants, then he can do it, and Warlock barked happily. He unleashed a devastating lightning bolt at the enemies, already thinking that he was 20 points closer to the rank of commander, and an explosion occurred, scattering them all around. Mealing waved her hand, ordering her team to wait until they ran out of steam and prepare a spell. They would not let them break through. At this time, Warlock pounced on Jin Tao, and Chen Luo wondered what he was even doing. He just wanted to give his men some practice. Who knew that Warlock would ruin all his plans? Warlock pounced on the guy again, who backed away in fear and closed his eyes, begging him not to come closer. When he opened his eyes, he saw that the dog had unceremoniously wet his shoe. Warlock had deliberately marked this man so that no one would touch him. After which he turned around and thought that the remaining points were escaping from him. He would not let them get away. At this time, MC covered his face with his hand in shame and thought, why is he doing this? He is disgraced. When all of Jin Tao's comrades fell, he fell in fear and begged Chen Luo for mercy, and then, in tears, threw himself at his feet, promising to do whatever he asked, if only he would spare him. At this time, Zhao Hai became nervous. He had not insulted Chen Luo in any way, but now he was worried whether he would accept him. MC then told Jin Tao not to cry. He would not kill him. Now he was only thinking about the benefits. The undead he summoned could also contain crystals, so this ghoul would be useful to him. However, undead below level 3 don't have crystals, only level 4. He could even help this ghoul level up first and then finish him off. Jin Tao began to bow to him, thanking him for his mercy, and he said that he was a talented guy. He saw potential in him, but if he dared to do anything and tried to escape, he would break his bones. He told Guang to find a room, lock himself in there with this guy and conduct an interview, after which Zhao Hai approached him and called him very talented with an awkward smile. He had done a lot of bad things before, but now he wanted to apologize to him. He gave him a gun, a small gift, which of course couldn't express all his respect. Chen Luo accepted it and thought that he was level 5. Now level 1 zombies couldn't pose a threat to him. What's the point of this thing? Although he could use it to scare them. He pointed the gun at himself and fired, causing everyone to call out to him in shock, but he stopped the bullet by throwing it into the portal. Although this gun is useless, he can use it as a toy. Zhao Hai was very surprised and frightened by what he just saw. He even lost his balance and fell, thinking that this was not the first level at all. Chen Luo was very strong. He thanked him for this gift and helped him up, and he remarked that his strength was beyond his comprehension. MC responded by saying that they did not know each other yet, but they would still have room for cooperation in the future. Then turned to his people and asked if anyone with the power of light, darkness, earth, or natural elements was present. Of course, other special auxiliary abilities are also acceptable. The salary here is quite good. Anyone can consider his offer. He smiled and thought that after all, he was the leader, but he still needed to maintain his impartiality. Could anyone help him and say a few more words? Lang Chen read his thoughts and stepped forward, telling them about the advantages of their team. They have 3 meals a day here, sometimes meat, and the conditions are excellent. Whether they are strong or not, but if the fire shines in their eyes, then there is no delay. Chen Luo smiled, noticing how well he said everything, and then people raised their hands, talking about their abilities, and the MC asked the man, is he okay with it? He agreed with an awkward smile and thought, no wonder he decided to take a bullet to demonstrate his physical strength. People began to ask to join the camp, promising that they would train hard and try hard, and Chen Luo said that as an entrance test, they must kill 10 zombies and bring him 10 crystals, prove that they really have strength, then they can become rookies. After that, people enthusiastically began to look for a team, and Zhao Hai remarked that there was such a strong community here, he should take his chance to join them. If he needs anything in the future, he can come to him at Jinlong Garden, he lives there. Night fell. He decided to spend time with Millie. She said that the rookie candidates were doing well, but why didn't he tell them a little earlier to destroy those zombies in the area? She figured that if one person kills 20 zombies, that should be enough. Even if not everyone kills zombies together, one person can kill 100, and that is enough. Moreover, zombies will evolve, so they all should be destroyed before they complete their evolution. MC said that this was just her idea. After all, there are still survivors who do not dare to fight zombies. Moreover, if everyone gathers together, once they encounter a more advanced mutant, they will all be finished. She agreed with him, and he suggested that she sleep if she was tired. After which she closed her eyes and wished him good night. He thought that everything he said was only part of the truth. He knew what would happen in the future. They had to let the zombies evolve. This was the only way for people to obtain high-level crystals to accelerate their development. Otherwise, if those powerful monsters came, they would simply have to wait for death. The next morning, he gathered everyone and asked them to be careful. The zombies were getting stronger. Since the zombies would begin evolving to level 2 from today, he warned them and then sent them on their way. Watching the cars drive away, he thought that this was natural selection. Injuries and deaths were inevitable. If they didn't get past this stage, what would they talk about in the future? Mifan became nervous. She told him she had a feeling Miling would be injured, but she didn't know if it would be life-threatening. Chenluo remained silent and thought that all three of them, Miling, Mili, and Suju, were working together, and Warlock would also be with them as a bodyguard. In that case, her life would be in no danger. He asked the cat, she might get hurt, but it wouldn't be fatal, right? She confirmed it, and he looked at the cars doubtfully, wondering, should he go with them then? Then the protagonist thought, no, that's impossible. How can one grow up without going through hardships and fighting? Protected in a cage like a canary, even if she eventually reaches the level of a king, she won't be the fairy of Linyan like in her previous life. Then he petted Mufan, and smiling said, she's an amazing cat. He thought, only those with mental abilities up to level 10 can detect when danger is imminent, and this is only effective for themselves. She can actually sense danger directed at others, and can detect it in advance. Then, Mifan meowed contentedly, and he thought, maybe he should collect high-level crystals and give them to her to strengthen her abilities. After a while, Dazju and Miling stood back to back. They were ready to attack, and Miling said, previously, level 1 zombies could be knocked down with just one blow. It seems that level 2 zombies will be more difficult, but the crystals will be much more powerful. The next second, she struck the monster, and Dazju said, but there are not so many second-level zombies compared to the first. She replied, right, so far so good. And Mili, sitting next to her, said she thinks they will collect new crystals today. At that moment, a zombie was watching them, peeking out from behind a tree. He thought, these people are much stronger than the ones he ate. He will not fight them alone. After that, he approached the other zombies and said, there is meat here. They should all go together. The next second, Warlock ran to the side and began barking, still in that direction. His prey. The zombie approached Miling and the others, and Mili, concentrating energy in her hands, said, sister, brother, be careful. In response, Miling told her not to worry. They will slowly kill them. After that, she sent a powerful explosion forward, and then they began to run forward. She shouted, no need to rush. They will simply deal with this group of zombies. Dazju ran after her and shouted, no problem. At that moment, one of the zombies began to concentrate energy, and Dazju shouted, why did the wind suddenly pick up? What happened? Miling shouted, this wind is speeding them up. He shouted, that's strange. Are there really high-level zombies among them? Then Miling stopped and shouted, they can't run like this anymore. They have to fight. The next second, Dazju delivered a powerful blow with his weapon at the attacking zombie. Then, one of the zombies approached Mili from behind and thought, now's his chance. He swung to strike, but Mili turned sharply, and Miling called out to her in alarm. She jumped up and stood in front of her sister, shielding her from the blow. Mili shouted in alarm, sister, and Miling screamed in pain. She sank to the ground, and bodily fluid flowed from her shoulder. Mili asked, how is she? She replied, everything is fine. The next second, several more bursts of energy flew at them, and then Miling aimed a blow forward, and then, surprised, noticed the monster dodged and thought, did it jump back? Then Dazju walked forward and shouted, Miling, she should deal with the regular zombies first. He will hold this one off for now. Then, they will take him down together. She shouted, good. Then Mili began to concentrate energy and shouted that she would help him with it. She directed a stream of energy, and Dazju, concentrating the energy in his body, ran at the monster and shouted, Mili, she must strengthen it. And she directed a stream of energy at it and shouted, done. Then he clenched his teeth and swung his fist. Meanwhile, Warlock turned and thought, what are they all so excited about? He only stepped away for a minute. What's going on there already? If anything happens to these three, Chenluo will cut him into kebabs. With these thoughts, he jumped on the monster's back, and then the zombie turned around and thought, this dog is their comrade? Why is he here? After that, Warlock dealt a few more blows, and Dazju added a blow with his weapon and shouted, take that! And then the zombie grabbed his weapon. The next second, Mili jumped to the attack, and Warlock began barking, wishing him death. Then the zombie jumped to the side and began to run, and Warlock ran after him and thought, wait, his points are running out. He hit him in the back with his paw and thought, no way. Then he and Dazju lowered the zombie to the ground and thought they had knocked him down. Mili added a blow of magic and shouted, what a freak. After that, she began to heal the others and, sighing with relief, said, finally, they are safe. Miling said, he is definitely worth a lot of points. And Warlock thought, well, that's it. They'll finish and go back. After a while, he approached the protagonist, barking happily, and Mifan, in the protagonist's arms, thought, this stinker asks how many points these crystals are worth, and the protagonist took the crystal in his hand and asked, is this a level 4 crystal? Warlock, for this crystal alone, he will give him 1,000 points. And he happily thought, excellent. Then MC directed the crystal to Mifan and said that this is for her. She needs to increase her power to level 4. And Warlock, noticing this, thought, he worked so hard to get this crystal, and he gave it to a cat. After that, the protagonist handed the crystal to Warlock and said, if he gives him the crystals, he will give him points. That's fair, but if he wants to use the crystal himself, he will not be able to return the points. And Warlock put his paw to the side and thought, that's true. There is nothing special about crystals, so he doesn't need this thing. The protagonist laughed and thought, he's so small, but why can't he still handle him? Then he looked at Mifan in his arms and thought that this time she got it right. Miling was in danger, but it wasn't life-threatening. When Miling had been in danger before, she had predicted it in advance, so he had managed to save her, thus successfully predicting twice. But this time, Daju was also slightly injured. Why didn't she say anything? Was he too lightly injured to feel it? Or was she now only aware of the safety of those around him? In any case, such abilities definitely need to be developed. After a while, everyone was sitting at the table. Warlock ran up to them and started barking. They should look at him quickly. MC asked, "What's wrong?" Millie asked, "Is something wrong with her eyesight, or has he grown?" Miling noticed he really had grown. Daju asked, "Did his sister feed him?" And then Warlock became indignant. What is he talking about? And Mifan looked at him and thought, he says that he just reached the 4th level. His size has increased accordingly. Daju said that he also needs to train harder. The protagonist smiled, looking at Warlock and said, "Good boy." Millie added, "He is so cool." And Miling asked indignantly, "Does this mean that she is weaker than a dog?" And then Mifan looked at the protagonist and thought, Chen Luo. He was asked how many points he will be given if he is the first to promote to the 4th level, and he looked at Warlock and asked, "What does he want to do with the points?" Mifan said, "He says he has a dream to become a dog elder, then become the deputy leader. By then, everyone will call him the leader of the dogs." The protagonist asked, "The leader of the dogs?" Then he kicked him in the tail and asked, he wants to displace him, and Warlock barked, "Points." After this, the protagonist clutched his head and said, "I understand. He must give him time to think." Then he heard a voice from the radio. "Brother, Zhao Hai has sent men again. About a dozen people have arrived in 3 cars and say they have come to ask for help." After this, the protagonist took out the device and thought that he was just saying it out of politeness. Why did he come at all? After this, he ordered them to be let in. After some time, Songlin approached him and, holding out a box, said, "Chen Luo, this is Songlin. Brother Zhao Hai knows that he will definitely have plenty of food and drink here, so he brought 100 cigarettes as a tribute to him." Brother Zhao Hai said that regardless of whether he agrees to help or not, the cigarettes will be his, and he thoughtfully told him to tell him what happened. And he said that it was a man named Jiang Wu who suddenly appeared on their side, competing with them for supplies and taking survivors. In fact, Brother Zhao Hai doesn't want to fight him, but there's something wrong with this guy. He's completely crazy. He kept shouting. He thinks the 2 tigers have no place in the mountain, and he abruptly said that if Brother Zhao Hai doesn't become his subordinate, he'll destroy them. This man is truly powerful. He easily killed over a dozen of their men, most of whom possessed 2nd-level supernormal abilities. Zhao Hai can't handle him, so he has no choice but to turn to him for help. And the protagonist thought, 1 man against a dozen people, including many 2nd-level people? The gap between a 2nd and 3rd-level person with supernormal abilities isn't that great. This man must be at least 4th level. No, that's completely impossible. He's afraid this man was as unlucky as Ling Chen, having obtained a high-level crystal. Combined with his talent, he immediately rose to 4th level. Refined crystals can't be absorbed so quickly. If he kills him, then he could get a crystal of at least level 4, level 6, or even level 7. Then he asked, what kind of ability does this man have? How did he kill more than a dozen people? He must have the strength of the flesh, and he killed their people with brute force without any skills. Then he turned around and added, okay, he will see what he can do. And Songlin punched his hand, and smiling said, "Thank you very much, Brother Chen Luo." The protagonist turned around and, waving his hand, added, "They will not waste time. He will go back to the house, clean up a bit, and then they will leave right away." Songlin replied, "Okay." And after a while, the protagonist picked up Mifan and asked, "Is he in danger on this trip?" She thought, "It seems not. She does not feel anything like that." He asked, "I think, so is he in danger or not?" She tensed up and then thought, "No, he can go on his way." And he looked to the side and said, "Go on his way." After that, he irritably picked up Mifan and walked forward saying, "Okay, if necessary, then they will go together. Warlock, he should stay here and guard the house." After some time, the protagonist, holding Mifan in his arms, sat in the back seat of the car and remarked, "This is a nice car." Songlin sat in the front and said, "Brother Chen Luo, if he likes it, he can take it. This car will be delivered to him later. Or he can take it when he returns. If he likes something, he should say so right away. Brother Zhao Hai will never refuse him." Then the protagonist looked out the window and thought, Songlin and Zhao Hai know how to solve problems. After some time, they arrived at the right place, and Zhao Hai said, "Brother Chen Luo, they are grateful that he decided to help. He, Zhao Hai, will remember this friendship. He will give him everything he needs. This Jiang Wu is really strong. All their spells are useless to him." Then he pointed his hand forward and added, "Brother Chen Luo, he should wait a bit. He will gather the guys to find Jiang Wu." He replied, "Okay." Meanwhile, Jiang Wu was holding a glass of drink and thought, it's good that he read a lot of books after all. He sat surrounded by girls and thought that he immediately guessed that there are power-up crystals in the zombie's head that can be collected. Although the food is not that tasty, at least he has a rather obedient woman. He could not afford such a thing in his past life. The next second, the man abruptly opened the door and shouted, "Brother, Zhao Hai has brought people." And Jiang Wu stood up and shouted, "Damn, he wasn't looking for him. He came himself. How impatient. He must gather all the guys. They are coming." After some time, he and his subordinates went outside, and MC thought, "That fat guy is Jiang Wu? You can't tell what his level is." After that, Jiang Wu approached Zhao Hai and, pointing a finger at him, shouted, "He'll give him one more chance to save face." He wanted to accept him into his team, and he, therefore. Then the protagonist thought, who cares if he's not level 7, then nothing will threaten him. Then Zhao Hai shouted, "Jiang Wu, he brought 10 more people. He's tough, right? He can beat everyone? If so, then he obeys him. Jiang Wu shouted, can he? And what does he think? He replied, everyone who goes against Jiang Wu will get half a kilo of sausages. At that moment, the protagonist looked at Mi-fan and asked her to wait here. In response, she meowed, and then he got into a stance and thought, it's time to begin the show. After a while, the men, waving metal batons, shouted, he must die, Jiang Wu. Take that! And he was strong as steel. It was impossible to penetrate him. He smirked as he walked forward and shouted, excellent, he'll show them what he's made of. Watching them from the side, the protagonist thought, this guy's still a brat. Not all is lost yet. How can he have such high hopes for his own strength? The next second, he concentrated energy in his hands and then unleashed several slashing attacks on his opponent. One of them cut Jiang Wu in half, and he said, this can't be. The others were surprised. Did he die? What did he just do? He seemed so strong. Brother Chen Luo's technique is terrifying. Then the protagonist approached the body and, feeling it, thought, is there nothing there? Where did he hide the crystals? In his bedroom. No, he's sure he has a very high-level crystal. It's definitely on this fat man's body. Songlin leaned over and asked, should I take it? Is he looking for something? He has experience in finding things. Come on, he'll help. If it's not in the pockets, then MC thought, yeah, the crystal is hidden well, but if this guy finds it, he might just absorb it, so what? Then Songlin took out the crystal and said, found it. What a huge crystal. The protagonist reached out his hand to it. Songlin gave him the crystal and told him to take it. Then MC looked at the item and thought, this is a level 6 crystal. It looks like it still has about a quarter of its former power. It seems to be a spiritual type of power. I should give it to Mi-fan. And then Zhao Hai thought, this crystal is very expensive. After that, he turned around and said, okay everyone, don't be afraid. They must listen to him first. They need to unite and clear out the zombies in the area. Zhao Hai guarantees that they won't regret joining them. After that, the protagonist approached him and said that he won't interfere with them. The base was left unguarded. It was time for him to go. He replied, Brother Chen Luo, thanks again for your help. Please, he can come if he needs help. If he wants, will he send someone to escort him back? And he replied, no need. He was grateful for the gold car though. Zhao Hai handed him the stone and said, if he likes it, he can have it. If they find more such good cars, they will send this to him. After that, Zhao Hai put his hands in his pockets and said, there are many advantages to knowing a wonderful person. He must convey to everyone that from now on their people must show respect when meeting Chen Luo. At the right moment, this could save someone's life. Songlin standing next to him replied, okay, he understands. After some time, the protagonist looked at Mi-fan and asked, do you like the show? He and Warlock look forward to it every day. She replied, it's interesting. At that moment, a dialogue was heard from the screen in the car. Buddy, bad omens have been haunting him lately. Mi-fan thought that his abilities are greater than hers. The protagonist smiled, looking at her, and said, it's just a show, but she can predict in real life. There's nothing to compare to. She thought, then can she learn and see what's up with milling? He thought, how cute. Did she really start telling fortunes, inspired by a TV series? Then she thought in surprise, she sees that Millie has big breasts. The protagonist shouted in surprise, damn, is she serious? He asked, is this something dangerous? She shouldn't scare him. She thought that she wasn't scaring him. It was truly a shocking phenomenon. The next second, MC stepped on the gas pedal and said that they urgently needed to go back. After a while, he asked in surprise, what happened? The guys with obvious wounds on their faces were standing in front of him, and Yoon said that they accidentally stumbled upon a swarm of bees when they were training near the lake. There were so many of them, about 2,000. And the protagonist said, it seems we need to inspect the entire area again. After that, he approached Millie and, holding her hands, asked, how is she? Are you hurt? She looked at him with a smile and replied, no, everything is fine. He asked, what about the others? She replied that everything is fine with them too. She had some pain and swelling, so she went back to the room. He looked at her in surprise and asked, something? She replied, well, yes. With these words, she pointed her fingers to her chest, and he thought, chest, really? Then he grabbed his head and said, Mi-fan, she talked about that. Now he understood. She thought, yes, she talked about chest. Sometime later at 5:30 a.m., the guy was holding the guy on his lap and shouting, brother, don't die. And he said, brother, he thinks that he can join the base on the territory of the villa nearby. It is very safe there. He does not need to constantly worry about other people. He hugged him and shouted, they are relatives. If he joins, then he can too. He replied that he can't. According to the requirements, he needs to get 3 crystals to join. They still have 1 less. After he dies, he must dig up his crystals. Then he closed his eyes and the guy with tears in his eyes shouted, brother, he said, he definitely can do it. And then the guy asked, isn't it good when survivors unite and help each other? Isn't it easy to kill zombies as a team? Why are they forcing him and his brother to fight off zombies alone? He put his bloody hand to his chest and added, if it weren't for their harsh joining requirements, his brother wouldn't have died. He clenched his teeth in anger and shouted, he hates them. They will pay for his brother's death. At 9, the guy came to the protagonist and said, here are the crystals he needed. Mi-fan, sitting on the protagonist's arms, thought, this man wants to kill him. And the protagonist thought, why does he want to kill him? Then the guy put his hand to his chest and asked, can he join now? The protagonist stepped forward and replied, of course they should go. He'll show him around himself. Mi-fan, she should go home for now. In response, she meowed, and after a while, the MC hit the guy in the face, then grabbed him by the clothes and told him to talk. Why does he want to kill him? Who sent him here? And the guy thought in surprise, how did he know? Or was it just a test? He asked, why does he have to kill him when they first met? He really wants to join. The MC added irritably. Faster. His patience is not infinite. Then he added another blow, and the guy thought, damn, he can beat him to death like this. The next second, he concentrated different energies in his hands and shouted, Chen Luo, they must fight. The protagonist thought in surprise, double abilities. The guy prepared for the attack and shouted, it's his fault. He demands too much. That's why his brother died. But he sits at home and enjoys his life like a cat. Shouldn't someone like him die? And the protagonist asked, why is he talking as if he is to blame for all the troubles? As if he destroyed and killed his brother? Or did he order him to join them? The guy, with tears in his eyes, told him to shut up. He jumped into the attack and shouted, he must die for his brother. The protagonist said, indeed, dual element. Then he concentrated energy in his hand and added, what a pity. He directed a stream of energy at the guy. After some time, the protagonist looked at the people passing by and thought, this morning, Mi-fan reached level 4. He remembered how she told him to take a closer look at him. This man could die. He thought that he remembered that his name was Xu Mingqing. He uses the wind element. Then Mingqing pointed his finger forward and said, guys, he needs to settle something. MC replied, he is with him. He thought, if Mi-fan was right, then will he be able to prevent his death? He must save him. Then he looked at a tree branch in surprise and thought, a cat? The next second, the animal jumped on Mingqing with a loud sound, and the protagonist thought, is this a zombie cat? Was he really supposed to die because of her? But the next second, the protagonist attacked the animal, and at that moment, Mi-fan spat out bodily fluid and fell to the floor. Warlock ran up to her and began barking nervously. He thought, Mi-fan, get up. What's wrong with her? He extended his paw to her and thought, everything is bad. She's not responding. I need to tell the owner immediately. Then he grabbed her by the scruff of the neck and thought, she must hold on, Mi-fan. He will find the owner now and bring him here. Meanwhile, MC walked forward and thought, Mi-fan's prophecy is coming true, but this can be changed. Her abilities are beyond imagination. The next second, Warlock ran up to him and called out loudly. He asked, what is it? He thought, did something happen? Warlock started running in the opposite direction. The protagonist rushed after him and thought, what's going on? Then he noticed the cat lying on the bed and called out in alarm, Mi-fan. He picked her up and thought, her heart is beating, her body is keeping warm. It's okay, it's good that she's still alive. The guards at the gate were unharmed. It looks like no stranger harmed them. Then he looked at Warlock and asked, who did this? Then he thought, the dog really doesn't understand anything. The next second, Millie ran up to them and shouted, Brother Chen Luo, what happened that made him urgently call her? What's wrong with Mi-fan? And he replied, they'll talk a little later. First, she needs to heal her. Then she began treating her, and the protagonist thought, could it be that he saved Mingqing and that provoked such a reaction from Mi-fan? But she had already predicted the events that happened to Millie and Mealing. So it wasn't that he interfered. The next second, Mi-fan opened her eyes and told the protagonist not to worry. She was fine. This time, it was precisely because the prophecy had been tampered with that she vomited blood and lost consciousness. The protagonist apologized to her and added, he shouldn't have been so hasty. Then she looked at Mealy and thought, she felt as if there was an orbit around her. They, Mealing and Mealy, were in this orbit and revolved around it, while the other people were outside of it. If something happened to the three of them, she could fix it. If it happened to other people, she would have to take a great risk. Warlock, it seemed, was also running around in this orbit, but if he strayed too far, she wouldn't be able to help him. Then the protagonist thought, so the prophecy could be changed, but only if it affected people close to her, so it wouldn't cause a backlash. At the moment, only 3 people were close to her. Chen Luo, Millie, and Mealing. Then the protagonist petted Warlock and thought, well, this ability should be used carefully. He said, Warlock, he should spend more time with Mi-fan, it will make her happier. And he thought, she's not a dog, why should he fawn over her? And the protagonist leaned towards him and said, if she's happy, who knows, maybe she'll help him avoid death. He was surprised, and then MC put Mi-fan next to him and said that now she will ride with Warlock, and he started barking. He will protect her. A month later, the protagonist stood in front of the people and said, the zombies they saw evolved to level 2 in a month and are now continuing to evolve. The others were surprised. Yesterday he met a level 3 zombie. He was scared to death. Level 3? He hasn't reached level 3 yet. Nightmare. They can't evolve infinitely, can they? Then the protagonist told them not to panic. The evolution of zombies means some improvements in characteristics and a little intelligence. This isn't the same as their level evolution. Of course, he'll still give them some time to adapt. For the first 3 days, only 1 level 3 crystal per day is required. If they obtain additional crystals, they'll be rewarded with 2 points. After 3 days, their daily requirement will increase to 2 level 3 crystals, and any additional crystals obtained will be rewarded with points. The next second, a voice came from his device. Brother, Zhao Hai's people are here again. They say they have news. They want to contact him. He thought, again? And then he waved at the people and said, okay. They should train in groups somewhere nearby for now. Everyone's free. After a while, Songlin said, Brother Chen Lo, here they meet again. This time, Brother Zhao Hai sent him with news. MC folded his arms and told him to speak. He said, someone organized a trade fair near the toll station on National Highway 999. He said he wanted everyone in the area to gather together to discuss how to overcome the difficulties, that it should be done the day after tomorrow. He plans to go take a look. Does he want to come with him? The protagonist asked thoughtfully. A fair? Sounds interesting. He thought, but in his previous life, he never participated in this. After rebirth, his goal is to gather the victors and elites from all walks of life, create an extremely powerful place, and work together to survive this nightmare-level Judgment Day. This kind of social event? Funny, isn't it? It suits him just right. In 2 days, the guy waved his hand and then approached the protagonist and asked, "Handsome guys, have they come for a walk? Brothers, do they want to play? Everything is possible here. The prices are fair and low. 5 kilograms of rice or 1 level 2 crystal." And then the protagonist thought, damn, it's already the end of the world and this jerk is picking on women. It turns out that he's an angel incarnate compared to him. Then Zhao Hai waved his hand in front of him and told him to get lost. After a while, everyone entered the fair and started talking. Guys, they don't need so many people to set up a stand. They need to split up now. The protagonist added, one group is guarding the stall, the other group is walking around. They will switch. They will see what's here. They can buy something or have fun. If they find interesting goods, they should contact him. MC added, Guang, Fangyu, Haoran, Daju. The 4 of them should follow him. Then they walked forward. One of them said, there's a crowd of people there. They're probably selling something good. They should go take a look. The next second, the people scattered in different directions. And Jiang Long said, let me pass. The protagonist looked at him and thought, it's Jiang Long. Then he looked at his opponent and thought, isn't this the very chicken Haoran asked for? Hasn't he eaten it yet? Then Zhou Mingliang stood in front of Jiang Long and pointed his finger to the side, saying, Jiang Long, he's a loser. His chicken gave his brother a fever and he still wants money for it. Does he think he's easy to intimidate? 50 kilograms of rice, no more. At the very least, they can find a place to have a good time. Jiang Long said, don't bother, brother Chen Luo, they'll discuss it over and over again. And the protagonist walked forward and said, if he doesn't want it, how about selling it to him? He'll give 20 level 2 crystals for this chicken. And Mingliang turned around and shouted in surprise, does he want trouble? This is his chicken, and his brother suffered because of it.